Hey everybody, what's up? It's Tim, my high cotton radio shirt. Kamala Harris has just passed the 2,390 electoral or convention delegates that she needs to be the nominee. Wasn't exactly waiting with bated breath for that one. We all knew that Kamala was going to get this. Didn't end up having that floor fight of Ezra Klein's dreams, but turning out okay. We've got the DJ Cassidy here, just crushing it. I don't know about his hat, but the tunes, Colorado gave us some Earth, Wind, and Fire, Alaska, giving us that Portugal the Man. Some good choices representing each state. What we're going to do here tonight, something a little different to see how we like it. I'm just going to hang, talk to you guys, take Q&A. We'll pop back into the stream when something's interesting happens. I'm sure some of you guys are multi-screen and got it on your TV or whatever. But we'll pop back in on the stream here to get the California delegation. They passed, and I think that they're going to get the last nomination is what folks have reported. So we'll pop back in and listen to California. And then, when there are interesting speakers that catch our eye, we'll pop in and listen to them too. And in the meantime, I am going to take questions from y'all. The other thing is that at the very end of the night, 11:15, I'm going to be back with Sam Stein and Jim Swift, and we'll see who else wants to join us for another post-game show. And so this will go from right now. I'm in Central Time with the people in Chicago, 7:40 for maybe about an hour, as long as I can tolerate your questions. And then we'll all get to listen to Doug Emhoff together, Michelle together, Obama together, and then we'll come back and hang. So that is the plan. We're streaming. Jim in the email to Bulwark Plus subscribers put out a request for questions for me tonight. So I'm going to start with them. Then we're going to go to you YouTube folks in the comments. So keep putting comments there on the YouTube. For folks that aren't Bulwark Plus members and love us and are sitting here being sickos with us watching the DNC live, you can go to bulwark.com/free trial. You can get a 30-day trial, and then you could be the first questioner next time. All right, first question. Tamara? It's like Tia and Tamara, maybe. Tamara Piety? That's a great name. Tamara Piety. Tim, this is everyone's first question. Tim, you were so down on the first night. Didn't you find anything to like about Coach Kerr's remarks, given what a basketball fan you were? I thought Steve Kerr was good. I thought Steve Kerr was pretty good last night. There were a couple people I liked. Some people just don't love to hear negativity. I'm like this. I get it. It's human nature, where I'll listen to a podcast, like a sports podcast, and I'll agree with what the guy or what the woman, shout out Mina Kimes, who I found out recently is a Bulwark fan. She has a great NFL podcast. I'll listen and I'll be like, Mina's making some great points, and then she really fucked up on who the Broncos quarterback should be, and then I'll just really get wrapped around the axle on that and only think about how wrong she was about the Broncos quarterback. So I feel like I'm getting that a little bit. On the inverse, last night, I liked Coach Kerr. I liked Jasmine Crockett. We played a little bit on the podcast today. I thought AOC was pretty good. It wasn't really for me, but I thought that the performance element of it was good. I liked the regular folks speaking about abortions. I thought their experience with being unable to get reproductive care. Thought Sean Fain, UAW, was good last night. Like, my problem was the big name speakers. So I liked Coach Kerr. Tonight, I don't see this in this feed. I saw somebody going by in the comments. What would I want more of tonight? Look, I want clips that people that are not political obsessives are going to like and share. So it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be moderate. Like, I think that it would be good. We've already had a speaker tonight, Stephanie Grisham, who worked for Trump. I like that. That's why I liked the UAW guy. I like the clip that you can send around to working folks, like younger people. I think we're gonna have some younger people on the stage tonight. I thought Jasmine had a bunch of clips that are gonna do well on TikTok. I like unexpected things, right? If you look back, I think back to the great convention speeches, Zell Miller for W in 2004, it was a Democrat, gave this barn burner. Like, that was memorable. I think about Khizr Khan in 2016, very memorable. So that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to see more of. And as I said last night, I think that Obama is much more suited to a convention speech than Hillary and Biden are. Everybody's got their strengths. So I expect Obama will be pretty good tonight. All right, Ty. Are you more concerned RFK Jr. staying in or dropping out and endorsing Trump? Thanks everybody for staying up late. Happy to stay up late, Ty. I've gone back and forth on this. So, I think that anybody that tells you that they 100% know for certain what the right thing is here is lying to you. We just don't really know. So let me talk you through my thinking on RFK. On the one hand, he had a lot of there were some soft Democrats, mostly younger men, that are basically Democrats that were going for RFK because they didn't like the Trump or Biden choice. Kamala has basically already won all those, got people back. RFK's number has plunged in the polls. Kamala's number has it's been part of what she's made back up from the Biden number. So a lot of like the low hanging fruit RFK voters, the Democrats have already kind of gobbled up, right? And so what I wonder is the remaining RFK voters, I think are probably going to be more Trumpy. So if he endorses Trump, I think probably the math shakes out that Trump gets a little bump out of that. Because I would think that over 50% of the remaining RFK voters, well, maybe not even 50%, because probably a plurality. Some of them probably won't vote, but a plurality of the existing RFK voters would probably go into Trump's camp. Here's the counterpoint to that, though. And Sarah, if I had Sarah on here with me, she would be adamant about this. Anything that divides up the Kamala total, even at all, is bad, right? If you assume that Trump has a ceiling of like 47, 48 is probably his ceiling, 47 is probably his realistic ceiling, then the fewer candidates there are, the more Kamala has the ability to get up to 51, 52, 53, right? And so, from that, like basically simple, if you're looking at it from the most simple way possible, without trying to kind of game out what these RFK voters are going to do, it's probably better for Kamala just to have as close to a one-on-one as possible. So anyway, long story short, I don't think that there's a clear choice here. I think that how much RFK campaigns for Trump makes a difference. I think that there's some other variables here. I think it's definitely something worth watching. But RFK was a big problem for the Democrats 2 months ago. Not as big of a problem as he is today. Okay, Katerina. Tim, what do you think is the best way Obama can set up Kamala for success in his speech? Love all the work you're doing. Thanks for putting in the overtime. Thank you, Katerina. So in all of these speeches, not to obsess over my complaints about last night. In all these speeches, like the way I see it, from the big name speakers, you can do two things. There are two things you can do that are helpful to Kamala. Okay. One is what Katerina's asking. Pump her up, pump her up, sunshine pump. Here's what I know about her. Here's what I've seen firsthand. Here's a little fact about Kamala you might not know. Here's a strength she has that you might not realize. That'd be one way. Like tell her story, introduce her to people, give people a side of her that they don't know. Because that's something that you can do in this case because of the weird nature of this race. There's a lot of people out there that have very shallow understanding of her. And so that is something that any of these speakers could do. Another thing that I would like to see more of the next 3 days that I'm sure we're going to get is, just friends of Kamala. I thought, thinking back, for example, to the 2012 RNC convention, which was a total shit show of epic proportion. Like if you thought I didn't like the first night of the DNC convention, it had nothing on the RNC 2012 convention. That you didn't build at night, which none of you even remember because you're not complete freaks. Nobody even knew what we were talking about then. It had Clint Eastwood yelling at the chair. The only good thing of that whole convention, it had Chris Christie speaking for like 3 hours, overshining the actual candidate and VP candidate. The only thing that worked in the Romney convention, literally the only thing, was friends of Mitt, who talked about there's one guy whose son had gone missing and Mitt started a war room about how to find him. It's a really moving, touching story, actually. So that stuff, friends of Kamala, is useful. So, best way for Obama to set up Kamala for success in the speech. If he has that perspective on her, I know she was an early endorser of him, but did they work together that much? I don't really have a sense for that. What is Obama good at, though? The other thing that you can do to help set up Kamala for success: tear Trump down. All right, and really put a finer point on why he's unacceptable in a way that is fresh, that makes people hear it. You know, the Trump's a threat to democracy. Trump did Charlottesville. Trump grabbed her by the pussy, right? Like all of that stuff, like people know, right? So this is also kind of challenging with Trump. Like, how can you have a soundbite or a little clip that can go around that makes people be like, yeah, man, I kind of hadn't even thought about it that way. Like Trump is that risky. He is that dangerous. He is that. I expect that Obama is going to be good at that tonight. And so that is what I'm going to be watching out for. And I think that all of these speakers should be thinking about this in that context, right? How can I shine some kind of light onto Kamala that people don't know? Or how can I do something that will persuade a certain group of people about the danger of Trump? Or the third thing, what can I do something to persuade a certain group of people, an unexpected group of people, that the Democrats are welcoming to them? This was the job that Sean Fain had last night. Looks like we're at South Dakota here. By the way, in the live stream, we will pop back in for California for the end of the roll call. And then after I get through a couple more of these questions from folks on our Substack feed, I'll get to the YouTube questions and comments and insults. I expect there to be a lot of insults. All right, who do we got? Brian. What can voters do if, when they believe that both major party candidates and both major parties represent existential threats to our country and society? My state does not allow write-in votes, so that's not an option. Constantly choosing the lesser of two evils is still choosing evil. Brian. Oh, Brian. I appreciate it. I hear you. Constantly choosing lesser of two evils does suck. But here's the thing. Like, voting isn't really about, like, voting is not a moral a question, like a high moral question. A lot of times us people in politics try to make it one, right? Because that's persuasive to people. But like when it comes right down to it, you're deciding who is going to be the head of the government, who is going to be the person that is best suited to make sure that this country can succeed, that people have a chance to thrive, that people's freedoms are respected, that the rule of law is protected, and that people can have the opportunity to go live their dreams, to go be their best selves, right? How do we create a set of rules and structures that creates a safety net for people, and also gives people opportunities and freedoms, right? That's all this is. You're choosing between people and saying who is better suited for that. There's moral components to it. Obviously, there certainly are people that are in office that are suffering from moral failings, but from a voter perspective, like to create this weight in each vote as if this moral judgment hangs over your head and you carry all of the sins of whoever you vote for, like that's just not true. Right. You're deciding between chicken or fish. You're deciding between who you're going to hire at your company. You're deciding between what school to send your kid to, right? Like there's always going to be trade-offs. Nobody's going to be perfect. We live in a country of 330 million people. If you are one of the people in the YouTube comments who loved every speech last night and love every Democratic thing, I count your blessings, man. That is unbelievable. Like that's just luck. Like what are the chances of that in a country this diverse, this sprawling? With all of these different views, that there are two parties, that one of the parties is going to align with you on everything. Like total luck. Great. I mean, that's a gift. It happened to me almost in 2008 with John McCain, but even me and John McCain had some differences on pretty important things. So anyway, that's a long way of saying whatever you think about Kamala Harris, she's totally fine. and Donald Trump is the actual evil. So you're not really choosing between the lesser of two evils. You're choosing between somebody that you disagree with on some policies. You're choosing between somebody that you probably think might not do a good job of do the best job you could think of managing the American government, or you're choosing somebody that is a fundamental threat to everything that we hold dear. and it's not really that close of a call. So my advice to you in your state that doesn't allow write-in votes is to vote for Kamala Harris. Hillary, on a scale of 1 to 1,000. Hold on, let me look. Where are we? We're at Texas. Hey, Texas. A scale from 1 to 1,000, how insane do you think Trump is being driven by the joyous atmosphere at the DNC? Very insane. Did you see Trump today? We should really, just to give everybody a little pick-me-up, Sebastian or Jim, let's just grab a little 20-second clip of Trump from earlier today. He was giving this speech at this sundown town in Michigan. It was a creepy thing. There's some racist history in this town. This is a very disturbing place to choose to have an event. But Trump's like talking like this. Trump's talking like this. He's like, oh no, they're calling me weird. I mean, the dude is down. All right. I'm not really much for armchair psychologizing him because he's pretty much the same. He's been the same for like 40 years. But as somebody who's had to watch him a lot, you can tell when he's riding high or when he's feeling low. And dude is feeling low. He is being driven insane. He turns on the TV and it's all coconut time. And it bugs the shit out of him. So just for fun, maybe his little palate cleanser at the end of this section or before we start 11:15, we'll show some of you guys those clips if you missed it. All right, Mary Beth, where are we? We're still in Texas. Mary Beth Gifford, channeling JVL here as a lifelong pragmatist, okay, pessimist. I listened to Stephanie Grisham talk about how Republican women can vote their consciences for Harris in the privacy of the voting booth. However, in a mail-in ballot state like mine, I foresee scenarios in which MAGA husbands will review their wives' ballots, et cetera, perhaps a downside to mail-in voting, which I otherwise fervently support. I got to tell you, Mary Beth, that's interesting. I hadn't considered that as a downside to mail-in voting. Good news is that most MAGA people don't trust the mail. And so they're voting on election day. One of the craziest stats during the primary was Nikki Haley was winning mail voting in a lot of these states where she was getting crushed. And then on election day, she was losing like 85-15 because the most MAGA people just won't use the mail. So that is something that's good. I'm for mail voting, but I do think that there are some potential issues with it. I had a family friend who's a Republican. The ones that actually do the electoral fraud or voter fraud are actually Republicans because everything's projection. But a family friend voted for her kid while he was at college on mail-in voting. Long story, but it's they admitted to it, like not realizing they were admitting to voting fraud, and so that piqued my interest when I heard that. Also, I do think people should have the opportunity to vote in the privacy of the voting booth, and I think we should have mail as an option. But I don't know, maybe it's worth. That's a good question. Once we get one of our friends in the democracy reform business on the pod to kind of talk about the pros and cons of mail voting. Are we coming to the end here? This guy's such a little cutie pie who's been running the show here. Oh, we're at the Virgin Islands still. Okay, we'll try to get a couple more Substack questions in, and then after we'll watch Kamala, or we'll watch Kamala officially get the final roll call, and then we'll come to the YouTube questions. All right, Joshua. What's up, Joshua? So I'm one of those disaffected conservative college-educated Georgia white guys I hear y'all talk about. What's up? Has there been any messages y'all have found to be effective for others like me here that I can use? I've tried a few things, but the best I've gotten so far is to get some people to maybe stay home. P.S. Little John hollering, yeah, you to cast the Georgia delegates to Kamala has to persuade some folks. Right. Hey, Josh, I got a couple buddies there in Georgia that fit that bill, and I've been kind of using them as a focus group and talking to them about all this. To me, I think the easiest toe in the water, and this is, I'm assuming we're talking about college-educated Georgia white guys whose wives are probably for Kamala, who don't really like Trump. Maybe they think he's funny, but don't like him. Because if you're talking about people that like Trump, you just cash it in and talk to them about dogs football instead. But if they don't like Trump, to me, I think to somebody that is smart and politically focused, there's a practical argument that can be made that is pretty compelling. That is that the Republicans are on track to win the Senate. The Republicans have the Supreme Court. You have a Republican governor in your state, in Brian Kemp, who's an actual conservative, unlike Donald Trump. There's a lot of checks and balances on whatever you don't like about Kamala. She's not going to be able to raise your taxes that much unless, you're really rich. She's not going to be able to do, whatever the most extreme thing you don't like about her, the Green New Deal or whatever. Like, that's just not happening. Like, even if the Democrats, in the best case scenario, they'll have 50 Senate seats. So like a lot of these dramatic reforms just aren't happening. And for somebody that is a conservative, that likes smaller government, that likes tax cuts, maybe the best thing is just to get rid of fucking Trump once and for all, support Kamala, know that there's a Republican Senate, most likely, that there's a conservative Supreme Court, that you have a Republican governor. There's not a lot to fear about that. That is a pure Machiavellian practical argument for them that I think is pretty compelling. I've had some success with that with people. David French has written a couple things recently. Our pal David French over the New York Times, just kind of talking about pro-life and why he's supporting Kamala through a pro-life lens. I would track down that article if any of the guys you're talking about are kind of are church-going types. That would be another one. Me and Amanda Carpenter had a talk about this on the podcast last Friday, and she made kind of a democracy-focused pitch that I'd point you to. It's at the very end of our podcast with Amanda Carpenter last week. And starting Friday, I guess, with AB, this is a question, Joshua, that I'm asking every conservative that comes on the Bulwark podcast. What is your pitch to other conservatives to try to help them get across the line for Kamala? So we will, and then also if you monitor what's happening with the Republican voters against Trump, our friends over there, you can kind of cull through those videos. Might be another useful thing to do. The RVAC guys, it's what I did last cycle as the political director, but now there's a new team, a great team over there that's working on that now. They're gathering videos from regular people where they talk about they are Republicans or conservatives, why they are voting for Kamala. I'd maybe just kind of scroll through those videos. Maybe there'll be one in there that'll kind of speak to you, or you think might speak to one of your friends. Where are we? We're at West Virginia. Okay, I'm going to take one more, and then we're going to go to the stream. Andrew, did you see Walz's comment the other day about a time when Republicans talked about freedom, they meant it? Should we hope for more messaging like this? It looks like the Dems may be sprinkling Republican speakers throughout the rest of the convention. Will those breadcrumbs lead to a major moment for Adam on Thursday? Adam's going to be there on Thursday. Adam, am I drinking? I've got a Beach Plum LaCroix. Adam Kinzinger is going to be there on Thursday. And I do think that we're going to see more about co-opting freedom and patriotism this week, tomorrow and Thursday in particular. Seeing a little bit of it tonight. But I think that I'm hopeful that the Democrats know what they're doing, and that Monday night was a box check that they had to do, and that there's some more proactive messaging coming up. All right, so that was so we got Wisconsin and then Wyoming. Let's see here. We'll come back to Substack. Jim, do you have a favorite comment on YouTube we can pull up on the screen here while we get a little closer? Hey, Water Bear's catching up at 1.75. I'd love just also feedback on this, guys. Like, we're just trying to do this. It's my first try at doing kind of a streamer style video. Is Bork doing outreach to conservative YouTubers, influencers that are sitting on the fence? Yes. Okay, Kate, I'll do that. Yes, I am. And if there are influencers that you follow that you think are good, like, comment on them, send them messages, tell them to reach out to me. I did a thing with Unheard, which is a British thing that is on YouTube, so has a lot of American viewers, that was arguing for a conservative case for Kamala. You can go check that out on the Unheard YouTube feed. I did the thing with Tommy Loren, and I've got some more other ones that I'm trying to do. What's the deal with the Pinto bags? I lost her. I guess now I'm still learning how to do the streamer thing. I guess these questions just come and disappear. What's the deal with the pinto beans? Oh, here's another one. Loki, what's the deal with the pinto beans? For starters, I kind of want to trade it out, but I feel like I'm stuck. The pinto beans is a total Zoom relic for when we lived in California. I lived in Oakland, and Zoom wasn't even fucking a thing. and we had a little corner in our house where we did, kind of meetings, like bulwark meetings, staff meetings, and a pinto bean sign was behind me. I'll tell you why we have it. And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened, and that's where I was doing MSNBC from instead of in the studio. And so it was like behind me, and then everybody started asking me about the pinto beans, and now I kind of feel like it's part of the brand. But I have been trying to get a Louisiana food company to send me like some red beans or something. I feel like I need to switch it out, rep Louisiana. But the connection there is not through me; it's for my husband. My husband worked for Heidi Hike Camp. She was supposed to be on the pod tomorrow, but it was my fault, scheduling conflict. So we're gonna have Heidi on the pod soon. More moderate Democrat from North Dakota, if you don't know her. He did her policy around food and agriculture, and this was a gift from one of the farmers in the state out there in Buxton, North Dakota. And I literally feel like anybody who has any connection ever to Buxton has messaged me about this, because there's like 800 people or something that live in Buxton. So that's the pinto bean story. I don't know that it's that satisfying, but I feel like now it's part of the deal. All right, there's Wyoming is finishing up here. Let's check in and see. Take a listen. I assume California will be next, unless my alphabetical skills are bad.
Our votes for the woman who will be the first woman president of the United States. Say it with me now, Kamala Harris.
The great state of Minnesota. How do you cast your vote?
Hello, Minnesota! My name is Hans Storvik, and Tim Walz was my neighbor, coach, and favorite teacher. We were excited to go to his classroom every day. If you've ever been in high school, you know that can be rare. He opened our eyes to the world. He taught us how to talk about global issues with respect, curiosity, and kindness, even and especially when we disagreed. But he wasn't just a great teacher. He was also a great neighbor and friend. In fact, when he was in the midst of a budget battle as governor of our state, he still found time to attend my brother's funeral. Mr. Walz means the world to my family. He's always been there for us, and that's how I know he'll always be there for you as vice president.
Thank you, Hans. Minnesota, let me hear you. There you go. 14 years in the National Football League taught me a lot about leadership. A good leader cannot be selfish. He has to look out for his team. Coach Walz is unselfish as they come. He has led Minnesota with honesty and integrity. And in November, Minnesota is going to send Tim Walz and Kamala Harris to the White House. Let's go!
I'm Amy Klobuchar, the senator from the great state of Minnesota, where nearly everyone votes and purple reigns.
And I'm Tina Smith from the great state of Minnesota, the home of the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz. Minnesota, we cast 10 votes present, and we deliver 81 votes for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz.
The great state of California. How do you cast your vote?
My name is Governor Gavin Newsom. From the great state of Nancy Pelosi.
Woo!
I come from a state like our nation of dreamers, of doers, of entrepreneurs, of innovators that prides itself on being on the leading and cutting edge of new ideas. California is the most diverse state in the world's most diverse democracy. And we pride ourselves in our ability to live together and advance together and prosper together across every conceivable and imaginable difference. But the thing we pride ourselves most on is that we believe the future happens in California first. And Democrats, I've had the privilege for over 20 years to see that future taking shape with a star in Alameda courtroom by the name of Kamala Harris. I saw that star fighting for criminal justice, racial justice, economic justice, social justice. I saw that star get even brighter as a
Come on, Gavin, they're doing Kendrick.
As a United States Senator and as Vice President of the United States of America. Kamala Harris has always done the right thing. A champion for voting rights, civil rights, LGBTQ rights, the rights for women and girls. So Democrats and independents, it's time for us to do the right thing, and that is to elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States of America. California, we proudly cast our 482 votes for the next president, Kamala Harris.
I love the roll call. Do a little Tupac Kendrick mashup there.
Participated in our celebratory roll call. Delegates, please know how critical you are to this process, both now and earlier this month.
All right, let's just go ahead and mute that up, Jimmy, and we'll take some more questions. I'll hang out here for the next 20 or 30 or until we get to some speakers that look interesting. That was cute from Gav. I love that Tupac Kendrick mashup. All right, let's go through the YouTube comments. Let's do it, YouTubers. I've been chastised by my friend JJ that we're not doing super comments, which means you have to pay us. So we're doing socialism here. Nobody has to pay. We're not giving extra comment love to the richest among us. We're just doing this egalitarian. All right, Mary, I lost you. Sea Cats. Can we do a hypothetical? Kamala wins. What happens? Does Don run in 2028? What does the GOP do? I know we have a tough fight, but I think this is worth thinking about now. My running joke on every panel that I get asked about who is the 2028 candidates were going to be was always going to be Trump versus Kamala. That was even before Biden dropped out. So I don't know. I mean, look, Trump's going to be old as balls in 4 years. So, will he have the energy for it, the stamina for it? I don't know. He'll definitely be a kingmaker. And this is the problem with nominating this man 3 times in a row. All right, you cannot just contaminate I think about it like the BP oil spill, right? You can't just contaminate the Gulf with this toxic sludge and then just clean it up one day and be like, okay, it's over. If you're still on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the water's still a little murky. All right, and the water's going to be murky in Republican politics for a long time. They're not just going to be able to turn the page to enter the Republican of your dreams, Spencer Cox or whatever. It's just not going to happen. Trump will still be a kingmaker. His kids will still be around. I think a lot of what happens with the Republicans will be dependent on how strong, the weakness of J.D. Vance. A couple of people in MAGA world, my sources I speak to in MAGA world. Actually, let's go to Kamala. We'll hold this thought on what my MAGA sources are saying. Let's listen to Kamala.
Campaign, and together we will chart a new way forward. A future for freedom, opportunity, of optimism and faith. So to everyone in Chicago and across America, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
She looks great.
And you're going to hear
it looks great in there.
Second gentleman shortly. I'll see you in 2 days, Chicago.
That's pretty good. It looks awesome in there. Advanced team for Kamala. Toots from me. Just tip of the cap from the Milwaukee advanced team. Managing that event while Chicago's going on. That's pretty impressive. Where was I? Oh yeah, the MAGA. What's happening 2028? So my MAGA sources I still talk to, some of them did not want Vance because they were worried that Trump was picking a successor in the way that Biden was with Kamala, and they wanted a more open primary effort if this was to lose. I think that concern might have been misplaced given Vance's terrible performance. I mean, Vance is to the degree to which he's more unpopular in the polls than Sarah Palin was, even after the Katie Couric interview, is just really jarring. Like, it's hard to really just kind of accept that and take in that fact that Sarah Palin, who was seen at the time as just this total outlier disaster VP pick, at least here we are a month in, she was much better positioned than JD Vance is. Maybe that changes. Maybe he has a good debate versus Tim Walz. Who knows? But I think that the strength of Vance will be a key component in whether the Republicans continue to go down a MAGA path. So I don't, I think probably the most likely scenario is Trump runs again. The next most likely scenario is that you have a Trump heir in the Vance mold, and then kind of a hybrid MAGA-ish establishment person in the DeSantis mold. Probably not the two of them because of their weak candidate skills, but a Vance type against a DeSantis type is probably how I see it shaking out. That's a long way away. Okay, what else we got? Let's roll. Let's keep rolling.
In terms of crime and all, but it's very dangerous in terms of a possible World War III. We're very close to World War III, and people don't realize it. We're closer than we've ever been, I think, ever since World War II, but this would be the war of wars because of weaponry. This isn't, as I say, two army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. The level of power, the level of weaponry that there is in the world today is so bad, is so dangerous, is so bad. And you need the right person to be president. We had no war when I was president, except that I totally defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate.
Okay, that's enough. Thank you, Jim Swift. What a contrast between that Kamala event in, oh man, my basketball skills are failing me. What's the Bucks arena called? Fiserv Forum. In Fiserv, just beautiful red, white, and blue, freedom, huge caps, high energy, looking great in that suit, sounding optimistic, sounding positive, versus Trump with a couple of cops behind him in a racist town, mumbling like this, talking like this. It's pretty good. Not a good contrast for old Donnie here this week. Does Crazy Papaw seem tired? He does. He does seem tired. All right, I'll start looking at Substack questions here. Oh, wait, here we go. Kelly, who do you think isn't being reached? It's a good question. So I don't know if you mean by the convention or the campaign in general, but I'll take it both ways. During the Biden, when Biden was at the top of the ticket, the main group that was not being reached was younger men, and really by younger I mean between under 50 men, particularly black and brown, particularly non-college, absolutely people that don't read the news, right? So younger men that don't read the news, right? That get their news via osmosis through the fucking Full Send podcast or through, whatever, talk radio or whatever it is that they're engaging on TikTok. Those folks weren't being reached. Kamala's doing much better there, but that fight isn't over. All right. There still is a category of people that should be Democratic voters that are not engaged as much in this campaign and are not being reached, particularly negative Trump messaging, particularly younger voters. I'm thinking about young men, young black and brown men in particular, that just don't even remember the bad parts of Trump, just are not engaged that much in politics. It does not mean they're stupid. It's not an insult to them. It's just that they're not, politics isn't their cup of tea, right? And so you got to figure out a way to get to them. That's number one. I don't think that group was really reached last night by the convention again. When some people got mad at me when I used the phrase political obsessives, like the convention was a convention for people that are really into politics. And then a bunch of people, and I was like, I don't think that's a great thing. I probably would have tried to reach different groups. And a bunch of people that are really into politics were like, well, I loved it. I was like, well, yeah, of course you loved it. That's the point. It was for you. It was for people that comment on political YouTube. So you should have loved it. You should have enjoyed it. I would like to see more. Ooh, Chuck Schumer. Nice moves, Chuck. We stand Chuck and Nancy here right now. We do. Give it up. So that group is being reached better by the Kamala campaign thanks to huge work that they're doing with influencers, just the power of Kamala's brand. Like there are a lot of things that are helping there, but more could be done. Then the other group is our people, the former Republicans, current Republicans that don't like Trump, the Nikki Haley voters. I kind of hate to say that Nikki Haley voters aren't our people per se. You know what I mean? I'm not for me. Nikki's not for me. But that category. And Biden was actually doing pretty well with them. Not as well as in 2020. He lost a little altitude, but was still doing well enough to win. That's a little softer now with Harris Walz. And so I think that a lot of those folks are gettable. And I don't, there was a Daily Cost blog saying that was like, Tim Miller, this convention is not for you. You will get nothing and you will like it. And I'm like, okay, I don't need anything. No, like we're not talking about me. I'm voting for Kamala. I've been coconut pilled since, a lot of you people are still doing Biden dead ender shit. I've been coconut pilled forever. Kamala, I think, has been great. I'm not sure that I've had a negative thing to say about Kamala in the past few months. So I'm there. I don't need Adam Kinzinger to win me over, but like the version of me that is less radicalized against Trump, the college educated, Mitt Romney voting Republican, they need a little TLC from this ticket. Those people out there. That might not be fair, it might not be nice, whatever. But like that's just reality. They need a little more TLC, and I think we're gonna get it the next few days. But I think that is the one category. The number two category is like younger men that are Democrats, particularly black and brown men. And then the third category I would say would be non-college women, Obama Trump voting women, right? So think about that. When you think in your head about the stereotypical Obama Trump voter, it's like a guy, right? It's like a union guy, working class guy, used to vote for Obama, rural guy. All those guys got wives, and many of those wives are not all about the overturn of Roe and Dobbs. And I think that Kamala can do better than Joe did among working class white women, among non-college white women. Ron Brownstein would be telling me I'm crazy listening to this, but I think that she could do it. And that would be huge. So that'd be the third group. Okay, what else we got? Jimbo. Andrew, hey, what's up? Is this the second Andrew question? You're hogging it. How specifically will Trump react when Kamala's Thursday night ratings are bigger than his convention speech? There's going to be some catch-up getting thrown around Mar-a-Lago. He's not going to be happy. Oh, he'll probably say the ratings were false and a lie. But dude is going through it. I saw Nate Silver today, who's not everybody's favorite these days, but he knows this sort of stuff. He was writing about how Donald Trump is on tilt. Tilt is a poker term where you lose a bad hand, like you should win, but you kind of get screwed over by bad luck, and then you start playing poorly after that. I went on tilt all the time back when I was a poker player, which is why I was a terrible poker player. So I think that's happening with Trump. I think he's on tilt. Judith George thinks Chuck Schumer should pass the torch. Judith, I would have agreed with you way more 6 weeks ago. But what just a masterful display of political maneuvering by Chuck and Nancy over the last 2 months. But I agree. I think the Democratic Senate is tactically behind the eight ball, and I think it'd be better to have a stronger leader. Guy Gene Studios, what's up? Is someone looking from outside the U.S.? I understand that 10% of any in 10% in any group will believe is some truly batshit crazy things. But can you explain how does that number get over 40? Guy Gene Studios, I wouldn't be live streaming with you right now if I knew the answer to that. I'd be cashing in on that. Man, I think that there's something about the two-party system in America that leads to this brain break. And I think that that's why a lot of times folks from you didn't say where you're from, but from Europe or Australia or whatever other places around the world, South America, I go like, what? Why is it like this there? And there is just something like in the human nature when there's only two teams that just makes it like football. You know, you're like, other team bad, kill them. And that tribalism, there's tribalism everywhere. There is rationalizing everywhere. We're all humans. But something about having just two parties, I think, is really corrosive. On top of that, Trump is a uniquely talented demagogue. It just comes down to that. I really think that had it been anybody else besides him, there's just no way that people would have believed crazy shit, but there's just no way that 40% of a group would be like the Hugo Chavez stole the election, Chinese bamboo. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have happened without somebody who's a total megalomaniacal sociopath who's willing to just tell a lie over and over again and do it in kind of a charming way. So I think that kind of the two-party system, Trump was like a cheat code that I think caused a lot of this craziness. What else do we got here? Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Vin Hill, we all know Harris will get a bump from this, do we? But traditionally, will that naturally fade back down over the next month or so, or does it usually hold? Man, we're in uncharted waters here. And just for people that are just coming in, I'm going to be hanging out doing Q&A with you guys until we get to the big name speakers. And then, when we get to Doug, probably is when I'll step out stage right, and then we can listen to the speakers. Then we'll come back at 11:15 to do analysis of the whole night with some of our friends that are on the ground in Chicago. The bump. Will she get a little bump? Blake Lively style little bump. I expect that she'll get a little bump, but man, the level of polarization right now, she has already gained back a lot of ground. A lot of the low-hanging coconuts she's grabbed already. And so I think that there's a little more room to grow for her. I think that Trump's approval number is still a little high. That's why I want to see some compelling anti-Trump stuff. I know that there's going to be some of the January 6th, the Capitol Police and their families that'll be speaking. So I want to see some things the next 3 nights that kind of help bring that Trump favorability number down a little bit back to where it's been in the mid 40s rather than the high 40s. And yeah, but traditionally, to answer your question, the convention bumps are ephemeral. Like you go up a few points right after the convention, you come back down. But the polarization, the number of undecideds, you saw this with Biden in 2020. He got a little bump. But it's different. It's a different animal than it used to be. It's not the 90s anymore. All right, what else we got? Eric, Tim, what do you think about the rumored Gov Walz Friday Night Lights campaign? I love it. Get him out there. Get him at football stadiums. I want him. Look, this is Beto and I talked about this today on the pod. If you just haven't listened to it, I just love Beto. I went downstairs. I told my husband, I was like, "You're just lucky he's straight." What a great American. But showing up here is really important. And I think I come at it a little bit of a different way than Beto does. Beto literally wanted to meet everybody in Texas and thought that he could win by doing that. And that's just not possible. I admire the effort and the hustle and the earnestness with which he undertook that endeavor. For me, it's optics. I want to see Tim Walz out in the parts of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, everywhere that feel like Mankato. I want to see him at a Friday Night Lights game in exurban and rural places. I want to see people boo him and him take it in a jolly manner. I want to see little events out there because it sends a signal to people that you're going to be a president for everybody. You're not doing it to win over the MAGA people in that world. You're doing it to steal the gettable voters in those areas, steal their spines and be like, I care about you. You're doing it to send a message to the other kind of soft former Republican types that don't like Trump that you're not going to, whatever, like just do whatever the people in Brooklyn or San Francisco want. Like it's optics and it's a message. It's also football. I like that. I like that he's a normal guy. We got Bernie up on stage tonight, the millionaires and the billionaires. The AOC, I got to say about AOC last night, again, not economic populism is not really my cup of tea. But framing that as patriotism, as caring about your fellow man, and it was pretty clever. The way she did that was clever. Being the first person on stage to mention the hostages that Hamas took was clever. AOC was clever last night. Speaking of torch passing, I think that the Bernie torch has been passed this week. Mr. Turkey Neck says a true commie. I don't know about a true commie. Let's not just throw around commie left and right. I mean, he's a socialist, okay, but he's no commie. Brady, Tim, on election night, what early result will give you the biggest hint at how the election is gonna go? Great question. So North Carolina fucked us by changing the way that they're counting the votes this time, and so did Pennsylvania. So both of them are going to go slow, which really sucks. We also talked about this with Amanda Carpenter on the podcast. And so I'm trying to think, like, in a weird way, the early states that's like not a swing state that will be interesting to monitor is Virginia. How does Harris Walz do in Richmond, in Henrico County? How does that compare to Biden 2020, to the Youngkin number in the state? Virginia is, has the DC suburbs, that act a lot like the Atlanta suburbs. It has these kind of smaller towns like Roanoke that act a lot like some of these upper Midwest smaller towns. It has rural. So Virginia demographically, there's in Petersburg, heavily black community that could kind of parallel what we're seeing in Georgia. So there's no campaigning happening there, so it won't be a total, microcosm of what to expect. But that is something that I will look at early. Back in the day, it would have been Florida, but I don't think that there's going to be much to watch in Florida, and so Pennsylvania and North Carolina will go slowly. And so then I guess you get down to it'll be Georgia will be the other place that you're looking at, and you're going to be trying to compare how Kamala does in the circle counties around Atlanta to how Biden did in 2020. And probably what I want to do, I hadn't even thought about this till right now, so I'm just thinking about this live, is get a little scatter plot of Biden's Georgia number, of Warnock's in the first round in 2020 and Ossoff's in the first round in 2020, and kind of see where the Kamala dots are landing compared to those. That's a project that I'm gonna get on. I'm gonna have one of the nerds get on. That'll probably be the thing that I'm looking at early. Okay, Dot. Hey, Dot. Appreciate you. I appreciate all your emails. Why do you think all this emotion is fake? Is it because your party faked it so long that you think everything is fake or cheesy or forced? Well, some things are fake. So there's that. I don't know. I think it was weird because it was night one. I was getting a lot of this from Democrats. They're like, "You're black-hearted. You have no feelings." I was like, I felt feelings a lot during the Hillary convention, actually. The 2020 thing was so weird because of COVID. But I felt feelings, a lot of feelings during the first Kamala speech after she took over. And so that is not it, I don't think. I mean, certainly there were a lot of phony Republicans out there, but there's phonies of every political stripe. I promise you that. I just, I guess the Hillary thing, I will admit to having some baggage. I guess not the baggage that some people are like, oh, it's because you've hated her since the '90s. No, it's 2016 trauma. Like it's 2016 trauma, and like the week of 2016, we had an we lost. We were gonna have adopt a kid, and the birth mother changed her mind, and then Trump won in like 4 days. It was the worst week of my life by far. I know a lot of other people have had way worse weeks than that. So I recognize my privilege here, but it's like trauma from that. I don't want to hear Hillary talking about breaking the glass ceiling. I don't have anything against breaking the glass ceiling talk. Other people talking about it make a lot of sense. If I was Hillary, I probably would have, had a different message. So I get that there are women in particular that maybe were moved by that, the history, the women's vote, the women's rights. That's fine. That just the trauma of 2016 is too much for me with Hillary to take. And Biden, I guess we just have to have a disagreement. I've seen Biden give very emotional speeches a lot. He's given some amazing eulogies of people he didn't even know. These personal stories. I felt like he didn't even know Kamala last time. I mean, like the things that he said about Kamala were no different than somebody who had never met her could have said. So it just didn't land for me emotionally. I'm hoping to feel some feelings tonight, and I just think that it was maybe not for me last night. It was maybe for some of y'all. CPA 21. Tim, what do you think our chances are to beat Trump so far, and how much do you see it changing after the DNC? I think Kamala's in the driver's seat, which is great. The map is much better than it was. A lot of options. But man, the 2022 midterm, which turned out really great for Democrats, like the Democrats won like 4 coin flips. The Nevada Senate was a coin flip. Arizona's governor was a coin flip. Oh God, now I'm going from memory, but there were like several seats that they won under 1%. And so you just worry about that. Like, do those coin flips flip back the other way? Trump just has to win his 20 states plus Georgia and Pennsylvania. Georgia's looking good for him. So now you're just talking about Pennsylvania. Now, Josh Shapiro won a huge landslide in Pennsylvania in 2022. Polls have been looking better in Pennsylvania. I think Kamala has a lot of room to grow. I think Trump has some room to fall. And so I think that we're in a band right now where I think that Kamala almost certainly win the popular vote now, not definitely, but we're in a band from like basically a tie election that Trump wins because of the Electoral College to a Kamala, 46.5 to 51.5, maybe 5 points. Let's bump it up one just, to feel our oats. 6 points. So Kamala can win by 6, or it could be tied. And that's kind of like the band that we're in. And I think that North Carolina being added to the map is really important. Arizona, Pennsylvania, like I think that's probably where this thing's going to really come down. And she has got to just really win either Pennsylvania or the other two. So I think it's doable. I think that she'll continue to gain. There's 2 debates. A lot can happen. A lot of work's got to happen. Okay, Danny Grace. It seems there are an overwhelming amount of Republican never Trumpers. So how is this race even close at all? Or is it not really that close? Yeah, there aren't, Danny, I guess. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a lot of us on YouTube. Yeah, there aren't. I mean, Donald Trump won the primary overwhelmingly. I know there was a lot of, this was on the rain cloud. Some people know this. The Bullock super fans here, this. Sometimes I can just be a rain cloud, but I call it reality cloud because like oftentimes when I'm being a rain cloud, it's because it's raining. And the Nikki Haley thing that a lot of people in the media were very excited about, maybe on some of these other YouTube channels y'all watch, they're excited about. They're like, Nikki Haley got 17%. It's like, well, in most of those states, like half of those people were independents or Democrats crossing over to vote for Another percentage of them were people like me, like they were Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden voting former Republicans. So you can call me, or I left the party officially, but you can call somebody that voted for Joe Biden. You can call somebody that hasn't voted for a Republican since Mitt Romney a Republican if you want, but like for all practical purposes, they're not. They voted for Biden and for Gary Johnson or Hillary, and so there's just not a lot of room to grow there. Then there's some percentage of those Haley voters are the target voters. They're the Trump Haley voters. Are they gettable for Kamala? Yeah. But no, I like this notion that there's just this ton of never Trumpers. If there, I wish there were. I wish you wouldn't have heard of me if there were a ton of them. We'd be watching somebody else's feed. So unfortunately, they're not enough. What else we got? Charlene, hey, what's up, girl? What's your guess on an October surprise? Who gets it and how bad? I'm chewing my nails on this. The vibes are too good. Well, for starters, October surprises are a little bit diminished because of early voting now. So we haven't had a real one in a minute. Like the classic October surprise, like the Bush DUI. It feels like it's from like the Pleistocene era. And so I don't know about that. I think though that there's reason to be concerned about the Kamala and Walz, the Harris Walz ticket has benefited enormously from being the fresh face. People wanted something fresh, wanted something new. Megan Thee Stallion, Brat Summer, Freedom, like the whole thing. The vibes have been immaculate. Like there is another side of that coin though, which is that like Kamala wasn't fully vetted, really. She dropped out in 2020 before she put herself up for a vote. So could other stuff come out? You've already seen them try to hit Doug Emhoff about cheating on his wife or whatever. That bullshit. Oh yeah. Oh boy, we really care about the first gentleman's past indiscretions when Donald Trump has cheated on every wife that he had and was trying to forcibly insert his mushroom dick into a porn star while his third wife was in the hospital with their child, with their baby. So, not really a compelling one, but there'll be more efforts from them to go after him. Jacqueline, Tim, do you think if the U.S. had compulsory voting like Australia with an independent, so states can't make up the rules, that Trump would ever have had a chance? It's interesting. I wanted to ask Beto about this, but we were just broing out too much, and he was having too much fun, and I just didn't get around to it. So throughout most of my life, up until 2016, no, that's not really right. From 1992 through 2016, if we had compulsory voting in America, the Democrats would have won landslide elections. Most of the people that didn't vote tended to be Democrats. They were younger people. They were less financially secure, marginalized groups, and so voter registration was critical for Democrats. Turnout and voter registration during that period. 2016, like Trump changed things. Like Trump's best group is non-college whites, white people that did not go to college. Do you know what the biggest demographic group is in America? White people that didn't go to college. Do you know what the biggest group of people who don't vote is? Not by percentage, but by raw number? White people who didn't go to college. So if every white person that didn't go to college voted, that'd be pretty good for Donald Trump. And then if you also look at, hey Jeff, I don't think Sarah is on the ground in Chicago. People are desperate for more Sarah, and I've sent that up the flagpole. But she's working. You got to realize I got this one job. Sarah's got like 3 jobs. She's trying to save the country out there. So then on top of that Trump does better with non-college whites. He's also doing better with, as we said earlier, with lesser informed men. Hispanic and black. So I actually don't know. If we have compulsory voting, I think it's 50-50 on whether it helped Trump or Kamala. Let's listen to a little JB Pritzker.
We claim her too. Now, one president we will never claim is the con artist the Republicans nominated in Milwaukee last month. Donald Trump once called Chicago embarrassing. To quote a great Chicagoan who won 6 world championships on these very grounds, we take that personally. I had to govern for 2 years while Trump was president. Let me tell you what's embarrassing. In Illinois, we passed a massive bill to fix our roads and bridges. When Donald Trump proposed his own plan, he turned right around and called it stupid. We eliminated the grocery tax. Donald hasn't been in a grocery store since his first bankruptcy. Illinois invested in clean energy and the jobs it brings. Donald claimed that windmills in the ocean made the whales a little batty. During COVID, we supported small businesses and jobs. And Donald told us to inject bleach. Donald Trump thinks that we should trust him on the economy because he claims to be very rich. But take it from an actual billionaire. Trump is rich in only one thing: stupidity. Now, I meet with business leaders all the time, and there's one universal thing they all need: people. They need more workers to fill all the jobs they have. But the anti-freedom, anti-family policies of MAGA Republicans are driving workers away. Here's the thing. Americans don't want to be forced to drive 100 miles to deliver a baby because a draconian abortion law shut down the maternity ward. Americans want the hope of giving birth through IVF, not the fear that it might be taken away. Americans with LGBTQ kids don't want them facing discrimination at school because the state sanctioned it. Americans want to go to their neighborhood grocery store and not have to worry about some random guy open carrying an AR-15. Americans don't want their kids to be taught in history class that slavery was a jobs program. And if Americans are black or brown, they want to get promoted at work without being derided as a DEI hire for the sin of being successful while not white. Let's be clear. It's not woke that limits economic growth. It's weird. And these guys aren't just weird, they're dangerous. Democrats are for lower taxes and higher wages, less inflation and more business growth. We just think it's wrong to craft those policies for Elon Musk and not for everyday working people. That includes a secure retirement and good health care. We think the government should help you prosper, not police who you're sleeping with. More than anything, Democrats want economic policies that are kind, not cruel. But Trump chooses cruelty every time. After all, everything he's achieved in his own life has been by hurting someone else. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, well, they've spent their lives lifting people up, not pushing them down. They know that a White House that leads with kindness looks at someone who is struggling and sees not what they might cost society, but what they might create for it.
Americans want policies that give every American a chance to make it to the middle class. They want to grow small businesses, and Democrats want to cut taxes for everyday people. More than anything, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz want a country where we can all live with a little serenity. The serenity that comes with a balanced checkbook, an affordable grocery bill, and a housing market that has room for everyone. And if there's one thing I know about Donald Trump, he's not bringing anyone any kind of serenity. We have a choice, America, between the man who left our country a total mess and the woman who has spent 4 years cleaning it up. And I think it's time we stop expecting women to clean up messes without the authority and the title to match the job. Vice President was a good title for Kamala Harris, but you know an even better one? President of the United States of America. Let's go get him!
All right.
Giving a classic
Hey, Rachel. I'm going to be seeing Rachel tomorrow night. You'll be finding me on the late night Tim After Dark with Jen Psaki, like 1 a.m. Eastern time the next 2 nights on MSNBC. So here's our plan. We've got, who the hell knows if they're going to do what they say, but if we can trust the DNC convention organizers, like a Ken, American business executive named Ken. He's so Ken coming up next. Then Michelle Lujan Grisham of New Mexico. Angela Also Brooks, Democratic nominee for Senate in Maryland. Larry Hogan Bros in the comments, hardest hit. I'll probably talk through those. Then we got my boy John Giles, Republican mayor of Mesa, Arizona, who's endorsing Kamala speaking. And after that, Tammy Duckworth and Doug Emhoff. So we'll probably shut down this feed around the time of John Giles, and then come back on after Obama. All right, let's keep doing it. Liz, Tim, you said something on the previous podcast that has made me wonder what. Oh no, oh boy, what is your position on abortion? This is like John Lovett always does this to me. Every time I'm invited over to a Crooked Media podcast, he has a little private list of all of the views that I have that he knows is going to make the Pod Save America listeners mad. And he asked me about them. What's my view about abortion? I wrote a very long thing about this that was called "Strange New Disrespect." So if you want the full sermon, I wrote it. You can Google the Bulwark "Strange New Disrespect," September 6, 2021, and I think I stand behind everything in there. I do not appreciate the way that the supposedly pro-life community has tried to install a regime around abortion that does not respect the life of the mother, the thriving of the mother, the life of thriving of anyone else around them. I'm just disgusted by the Texas bounty law. I'm disgusted by some of the stories that we heard last night about women with ectopic pregnancies. I've been messaging with some people in Texas that have gone through very horrific personal stories. And so, I feel like I fit in what is, if you look at all the polls, the big middle of the country that is represented by basically nobody in politics, but by a majority of Americans, which is that there should be some rules about it. Like I get flummoxed by the progressive pushback on me. That's like, well, Tim, only 2% of abortions happen in the third trimester and are elective. All the other ones are medical emergencies. Like what you're saying doesn't happen. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, then it should be easy to make those illegal then. If they don't happen, then it should be illegal. And if they only happen 7 times, we agree that they're bad, then we should not allow that so that those 7 children aren't killed. So, I think that there should be some reasonable restrictions. I much preferred the Democratic view of abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. We should honor both the life of the mother and the life to come. I liked that better than I liked. There was, I think, a picture from the DNC convention of something that said "abortion Barbie." I don't really like that. That makes me uncomfortable. Like, kind of celebrating abortion makes me uncomfortable. And so I have very complicated views on it. I obviously have sat with a lot of women that are going through these choices, and I respect their choice. I think we do a horrible job of supporting them. And in the very few cases where I was in a position to help support them, I was happy to do it. But it's a tough issue, and I think that I understand. But let me put it this way: I understand the pro-choice mindset, particularly with the way that the Republicans have acted the last few years. That's like, I don't want that man deciding what I do with my body. I totally understand that sentiment, and that sentiment resonates with me on a deep level. I also think that we just cannot then abrogate the reality of the value of the other life at play there. And I wish that we could have this conversation in a way that was more respectful of both and more supportive of both. So there you go. I've blown up the comment section thanks to Lisa. Jeffrey Payne, I have an off-topic question. Great. Please send me more off-topic questions. I know you've been living your indie band summer, like you talked with Beto. But have any of the pop girlies slipped into your playlist? Oh, yeah, of course they have, Jeffrey. Thank you for asking. I have a summer playlist. If you go the Bulwark on the outro songs, I have a playlist that's called Bulwark Pod Songs, where you can see all the outro songs that I've played. But then if you just click on my profile, Tim Miller 7777 on Spotify, you can see my other playlists. And I have a summer playlist that you can go check out, which is all of my summer songs. And of course, the pop girlies have been on my list. We've been listening to Brat on repeat. I'm Just So on Chapel Roan. A couple of the songs I like, a couple of the other ones I don't. We saw Jessie Ware in Barcelona on the one vacation I've taken in, I don't know, a year. And it was really great. She was amazing. She did a Do You Believe in Life After Love cover. And I was feeling very gay. Doesn't get much gayer than that. So Jessie Ware and Charlie on the top of my pop girly list. What else do we have? A lot of chatter. Vaughn, I'm coming back to you on LSU, but I want to read this from Sarah first. Why doesn't anybody also remind the public that 3.5 years ago, not only did Trump leave the COVID crisis in shambles, but he did nothing to help the Biden and Harris transition? Sarah, you're speaking my language. You are speaking my language. I got to tell you, this was another complaint I had about yesterday. Sorry to be your complaint box, but I think that they should stop talking about COVID. People do not have good memories of COVID. It is you thought the comment section just started blowing up on abortion. Just wait till the comment section if I start talking about masking or distancing or what we should do about COVID or schools opening. It was so personal. It was so painful. It sucked for everyone involved, and nobody likes remembering it, and nobody likes talking about it. And I feel bad for people that have long COVID. I feel bad for people that lost loved ones. And so there's still things that we have to deal with in the governance side of things. But at a convention, I just don't I don't think it's a winner. Don't talk about it. There are a million things to talk about Donald Trump sucking, including the fact that he didn't help the transition. This is the other thing. Like, the January 6th thing is important. But in addition to that, it was the first time in our history where we did not have a peaceful transition of power. We did not have a handoff. It was unacceptable. He should never be in there again. Nothing else he has said or done should even fucking matter. Doing the quotes about, how he said this, how he said that. Pritzker just did that. It's pretty good. Yeah, Trump said some terrible things. Trump not only instigated the riot at the Capitol, but did not work with the Biden administration on a transition. We were in limbo for a couple of weeks. It was a very dangerous time. He did not show up to his successor's inauguration. It was a abdication of duty that is beyond anything of any politician in my lifetime or my parents' lifetime. It was sickening, and I do wish people would talk about it more. I don't know why they don't. I like to talk about it. I forget your name, but someone asked me about LSU. There it is. Hey, Vones. We're just going. We're going abortion, Charlie XCX, COVID, January 6th, LSU Tigers. We're just touching all the bases. I don't know. I'm worried about the defense. I like Nussmeier. I like the quarterback. I'm worried about the secondary. I think they're going to have the best recruiting class in the country this year, though. So if Kamala brings us into the Coconut Grove, by 2027, I think that Tigers are really going to be in business. All right, what else we got? What else do we got? And I assume Jim and Sebastian, you're monitoring for John Giles. Because once we get to him, we'll call this a wrap for tonight. Could argue that Trump canceling Iran deal is why Middle East is so messy now. Yeah, who's that? Crystal. Yeah, I have a running gag about how I think that foreign policy experts of all parties should have their own Twitter where they just yell at each other and talk about how wrong they were, because nobody's gotten it right in the Middle East. And there was this period of time where the the Winnie the Pooh meme, we've got like Winnie the Pooh eating honey out of with his hand naked, and then there's the Winnie the Pooh eating honey in a tuxedo. The MAGA Winnie the Poohs in the tuxedo to try to fancy up their rationalization for Trump. The Abraham Accords and abrogating the Iran deal were like two things they'd always talk about. And I don't know. I certainly don't think giving Iran money was helpful either. So I'm not over here, standing the Obama Iran policy. But certainly, Iran felt emboldened during the Trump years. Certainly, the Abraham Accords, in some ways, had the unintended consequence of making Hamas and Hezbollah feel as if they were in danger of kind of losing political power in the region, and I think motivated them to destabilize things more. I think it's a very sticky wicket. And you notice they don't talk about the Abraham Accords as much. Were they even mentioned at the RNC convention? I'm sure they were mentioned, but it wasn't a big deal. If Kamala beats the douche, you'll be an LSU fan. Steve, you just come on down to Tiger Island. We'll welcome you anytime. Tim, Claire. Hey, Claire, what's up? Imagine Trumpism has been crushed. Where does your alliance with Dems go? Is what we are being built now enduring? I think it is. I don't. Many people have different disagreements about this. I don't have a crystal ball, but what I see happening in our country is that our system is moving more to look like a European political system. And I think that the Republican Party is on an inexorable path towards becoming a blood and soil nationalist populist party, in the model of Le Pen, or in a nicer way, maybe the Boris Johnson conservatives, or Orban, and that the Democrats will be the globalist party in a lot of ways. Also a multiracial party, and they'll look a lot more like what Labour looks like now, present day Labour, not Jeremy Corbyn Labour in UK. And if those are my choices, I'm with Labour. So, I think that not all, but many of the Never-Trumpers, some of the Never-Trumpers will be politically homeless. The most conservative ones, and the ones that were always kind of anti-immigration, and that wasn't a problem for them with Trump, will go back to whatever's post-Trump. And I think that many of us will be in coalition with Democrats. The other thing is, people always ask this question. They're always like, the question is always like, what will Tim Miller and David French and Rick Wilson and Nicole Wallace and Sarah Longwell and Charlie Sykes do? And I don't know. We all have different lives. Everybody will do different things. I see myself more, much more closely aligned with kind of a neoliberal center left view than I do, with some exceptions, like we just discussed. Then I will a populist Republican Party, which like took all the things that I hated about the Republican Party and made them prime, and then took the things I liked and were like, no, we're not all about that anymore. So I'm not going back to that party. We're not going back. But I think if you look at it at a voter level, most of the voters have just changed. Like they don't think about this stuff as deeply. So I wrote the article about the Red Dog Democrats. Like when I think about never Trumpers, I don't think about Sarah and Nicole. I think about my friends from high school who voted for Bush and now just are basically Democrats. Like that change has just happened among the voters. It's actually the political class that's behind the voters. Pineapple on pizza. I'm a no, Xandra. All right, JB Bird. What anti-Trump tactics backfire the worst with Trump voters? The messengers are pretty bad. You know, I kind of part of the reason why we did RVAT, how we did it, which was videos from real people talking about why they're not voting for Trump, is that Trump voters do not want to be lectured to by fucking smart ass elites from the city. It's a part of the reason why I'm not doing RVAT this time. Like I do not think I'm the most compelling messenger to win over 2-time Trump voters. I'm glad that the convention did not invite me and it invited Stephanie Grisham and people that worked for Trump, right? To be credible with these voters, like you can't have been a Hillary Clinton voter with GDS, you know, like they have to feel like you get them, like you hear them. All right. Everybody wants to be heard, even MAGAs, especially MAGAs, maybe. And so the messenger, I think, is more important than the message. So the message also shouldn't be condescending. What else we got? Who's speaking, Jim? Where are we at? What's the status? It's a little bio video. I've already watched that. It's good. It's a good bio video. Alex, do you think there's a chance for a new party or a third party to claim the center-right section of the electorate? I don't. I mean, yes. So, okay. Yes, at state level. I think the model going forward is to do what Evan McMullin tried to do in Utah, but to just do it better. To have an independent in like a centrist independent that runs in a red state that with the kind of blessing of the Democrats that they don't run anybody, or the inverse that runs in a blue state with the blessing of the Republicans. That probably won't happen because the people that run the Republican state parties in blue states are insane. I think that can happen at a state level. I think it can happen in certain parts of the country, locally. Nationally, it just doesn't work. There are two ways for it to work nationally. One is a super charismatic person in the future that is not really center right so much as just totally heterodox, like has a weird combination of views. That's potential. The only other way for it to happen would be for the Democrats to nominate a Bernie and the Republicans to nominate a Ted Cruz, right? Like they have to be ideological and extreme. Trump is extreme in weird ways, right? Trump is not ideologically extreme as far as like being all the way to the right on a left-right continuum. Like he has a bunch of strange heterodox positions. He's weird in like the up-down sense, like he's an authoritarian. So if you have like left, right, up, down, Trump's like way up here, right? Ted Cruz is down here on the main line, right, on the far right. And then, Bernie's over here on the far left, right? So if you had a Bernie and a Cruz, you'd be in good shape for a third party. But with Trump up here and with Kamala in the middle, it's just not going to work. Is this Angela also Brooks? Yeah. All right. We'll do a couple more and we'll get out of here. I'll try to do it rapid fire. You don't think the Republicans losing big will force Republicans to be more moderate? I don't think they're going to lose big. I mean, I think if they lost big, I don't think that they would be more moderate. I think that they would go for a Ron DeSantis type. Like they would think that the answer is to go for somebody that has won as a conservative, a Greg Abbott or a Ron DeSantis. I think is what they would try next before moderate. Eric, if Kamala wins, are you concerned on how MAGA cult responds? A lot of those fuckers are in jail. Hell yeah. FBI, we back the blue. We rep the blue here. The feds. So a lot of the worst people are in jail, which is good. I do worry. I worry about stochastic violence. I worry about how Trump behaves. But can we say one nice thing about MAGA on this thing? Am I allowed to say one nice thing about MAGA, like an hour or two of this live stream, 1 hour, 29 minutes in? I thought that after that assassination attempt, it was going to be way worse. Might still get bad, but I just thought that like the bloodthirst and the vengeance and the one-off crazy people, I thought it was going to be really bad, and it just hasn't been. And I love that I was wrong about that. And so I don't know. I'm alarmed. I think it's good to be alarmed about the reaction to Kamala. I think it would be obviously there'll be concerns about one-off things. A January 6th type thing, I don't know. I think that a lot of the people that were key players to that got jailed. And so I'm a little bit less worried about that. Not 0% chance, a little bit less worried. Can we ever get shorter times between elections? Robin. Hey, Robin. Good to see you. It was funny. Ben Smith wrote a big semaphore piece about this, about how great this is, like the Kamala sprint. It's like 90 days. Awesome. 100 days. All elections should be like this. And cool. I'm for that. But I said to Ben, I was like, well, but what? So what happens, though, in 2026? People don't run. People don't talk about it. There aren't politics TV shows. There's not Twitter. There's not YouTube feeds. There's not angling. I wish we could have shorter elections, but people love politics as entertainment right now and sport. And so I would love to have to go be a high school social studies teacher because none of you guys want to watch my live streams anymore. But I think that there's an insatiable demand for this stuff. There's a consumer demand for it, and there's a supplier demand for trying to position people better. So I just think all the incentives are towards longer campaigns. Freedom Van, Mikey era, of course, man. R.I.P. Nike Panic. We'll have to put on a little Mikey Panic tonight. Dan, do you think there's a future for ranked choice voting? Maybe. I think it's a little confusing. I worry it's a little too confusing. It's not too confusing for me, but I think it's a little too confusing for the median voter. I like what they're doing in California and Washington with top two, and kind of top two going into a runoff. I like that better than ranked choice voting. I'm not like totally hostile to ranked choice voting, but and I think it worked in Alaska. But when there are bad actors out there, I think it's adding in a layer of potential risk. Politics is about policy. Another night of pretending politics is about policy versus spectacle. No, it's about both. Can't have another January 6th because we don't have a GOP VP. What would they be demanding? Great point, Rick. But you could have something, right? Like you could have a gathering place, a protest. I was another thing I was pleasantly surprised about. I was after the Kerry Lake election, I was at the place where they're counting votes in Maricopa County, and I got to tell you, I was scared would be overstating it. I wasn't like freaked out. I wasn't wearing a bulletproof vest, but I was just a little cautious. I was a little looking around, like I don't know, man, it could get wild here, and it didn't. So I don't know. I mean, I think that we should be judicious and concerned and mind cross our P's and Q's. I'm glad we've got groups like Protect Democracy out there doing the work. But there have been a couple of opportunities for like little post January 6th tremors that haven't happened. So we're knocking on wood. Mary Kate, funniest campaign experience. Oh man. I've had so many funny campaign experiences. But I guess probably following Donald around the spin room after the South Carolina debate in 2016, when he I was like standing behind him. It was before he had like a security apparatus. It was during the primary. And like interrupting all of his things, saying that he was a Putin lover and that he loves Putin. And then Corey Lewandowski came in and body checked me and like prevented me from getting next to Trump while I was trolling him in the spin room. That was pretty good. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. I'll come back to you on that one on a podcast. I could tell John Huntsman for president stories all day and in like the Veep sense of being funny. But I don't know if this is probably the right moment for this. We got some cheering. What's happened? Is she lighting it up? All right, I'm gonna have to go watch Angela after this. What else? We'll do a couple more, and then we'll get to getting. Kenobi, what's more important to get rid of, the electorate or the filibuster? Pass. Okay, next. What does Pete do next? Great question. I wish Kamala and Pete had a good enough relationship for Pete to be the chief of staff. I think he would have been better at that than transportation. It's more of a political role. It's more of a public facing role. But I don't know if they have the trust. I'm not trying to start a rumor. I don't think that they have distrust, but I just don't sense Kamala is not a DC creature, despite the fact she's been there for a little while. And I think she's going to want to have somebody she has really deep trust with in that role. So I don't know. If not that, I think he'll probably want a foreign policy role. Besides Kinzinger, are you expecting any other Republicans to speak at the convention? Gary. Yeah, I am. There are going to be some other ones, I know. One of the unintended consequences of this change and having the short window is that I think that they're doing a good job with the logistics of the convention, but like I don't think that they did a lot of big game hunting. Okay, I don't want to get myself in trouble on this live stream, but I was hoping that the Democratic convention would try harder at getting the Chris Christies of the world. If we're going to say big game hunting, who's a bigger boy than Chris Christie? And I don't think that I just don't think that they had the time. So I'm hoping that some of those bigger name Never Trumpers are out on the campaign trail this fall. But I don't expect him there. I've heard a little buzz about some national security Republicans that have not been announced yet. That I do not want to say live on the live stream because I don't want to, disappoint anybody. But fingers crossed, we'll keep an ear out for that. Is this my man? Is this Mayor Giles? Have we done it?
I feel a little out of place tonight.
All right. Okay. Hey guys, this is going to be it. Jim, just mute that for 1 second. I'm gonna go down. I want to listen to Mayor Giles. I want to listen to Doug Emhoff, who's such a good guy. I got to meet Doug a couple months ago. That dude, I just had such an enjoyable conversation with him. I think he's going to be a really important ballast for Kamala and keep things real. I appreciate you guys all hanging out with me for the last hour and a half. I'd love your feedback. You can DM me at various places or just tweet at me, and I would love to know what you thought about this, what we could do better. I've enjoyed it. We're gonna watch the rest of this. I'll be back at 11:15 with Sam Stein from Chicago, Jim Swift. We'll see who else wants to come hang out. So come back 2 hours. Hopefully Barack Obama lights it up in Chicago, and I'm hoping to get that little Bulls intro music for Obama. We'll see if we get that. All right, y'all. We'll see you soon. Peace.
Are in the political middle. John McCain's Republican Party is gone, and we don't owe a damn thing to what's been left behind. So let's turn the page. Let's put country first. Let's put adults in the room where our country deserves. Thank you.
It's our dream to have a large family.
Being a parent, it's the most important thing in my life.
For decades, Americans have turned to the miracle of IVF treatments.
She felt like a dream come true.
The fact that she was able to build a family, that's why I do what I do.
Without IVF, I don't know how this would have been possible.
IVF treatment gives many patients an opportunity to have a family.
I love that I get to help people every day become parents.
But a party that pretends to be pro-family wants to put a stop to this. They are attacking the right to expand and start a family.
It's unthinkable.
They may never have the family that they've dreamt of.
In the U.S. Senate,
Republicans blocked a Democratic bill that would have established protections for in vitro fertilization.
Mr. Vance, no.
If Republicans actually cared as much about protecting IVF, this would have been a simple yes vote.
Family means support.
To me, family is your whole world. It's the life that you build.
IVF made my family.
It made my heart whole.
It made my life full.
It made my life full.
And it made my life full.
And we will always fight for you, for your family, for your freedoms, and for your future.
Kamala Harris and Tim Walz honor the freedoms of all families to make decisions about what is right for them, for this generation and generations to come.
Please welcome Illinois Senator Tammy Duckworth.
Chicago. You know, I went to war to protect America's rights and freedoms. So I take it personally when a five-time draft-dodging coward like Donald Trump tries to take away my rights and freedoms in return, especially when it concerns my daughters. My girls, gamer girl Abigail and queen of the monkey bars, Miley, are everything to me. But they would never have been born without access to reproductive care. Because after 10 years of struggling with infertility, I was only able to have them through the miracle of IVF. But now, Trump's anti-woman crusade has put other Americans' right to have their own families at risk. Because if they win, Republicans will not stop at banning abortion. They will come for IVF next. They'll prosecute doctors. They will shame and spy on women. And if you think that's far-fetched, just look up what happened in Alabama last year. So let me say to every would-be parent, I see you, I'm with you. And together, in November, we'll send a message to old Cadet Bone Spurs. Stay out of our doctors' offices, and we'll yell at it out of the Oval Office too. Look, my struggle with infertility was more painful than any wound I earned on the battlefield. So how dare a convicted felon like Donald Trump treat women seeking health care like they're the ones breaking the law? How dare J.D. Vance criticize childless women on cable news, then vote against legislation that would have actually helped Americans to start families? How dare the GOP endanger the dreams of countless veterans whose combat wounds prevent them from having kids without IVF, punishing our heroes for their willingness to serve? It's simple. Every American deserves the right to be called mommy or daddy without being treated like a criminal. Kamala Harris believes that. So let's make some history and elect her in November. God bless America.
This is my dad, Doug. He was raised in Jersey and moved to LA when he was 16. These are his parents, Barb and Mike. They think he walks on water. This is what he wore to his bar mitzvah. And here's him at summer camp. They voted him most athletic, so he says. This is a photo McDonald's used when he was Employee of the Month. It hung on our wall for years. My dad is a lawyer, a really good one. My mom called him the crisis guy because he was everyone's first call. My parents split when I was in middle school, and that wasn't easy. That's not easy for any kid. But it helped that my parents stayed friends, and we all kept hanging together. We grew closer than ever. And then he met Kamala, the blind date that would dramatically change all of our lives forever. It was my senior year of high school. Elle and I would laugh watching them fall in love, acting like teenagers. In 2014, Kamala became Mamala. She took over Sunday night dinners and taught Doug how to actually cook. Our blended family wasn't used to politics or the spotlight, but when Kamala became senator, we were all excited to step up, especially my dad. Then Kamala became vice president. It felt like Doug was a bit out of place on Capitol Hill. I thought, what is my goofy dad doing here? But he embraced it. He left his practice after being a lawyer for 30 years. That was tough. I was so proud to watch him do it, to stand by her side, an example of true partnership. I just got married myself, and he's inspired me as a new husband. Anyone who really gets close to him knows he's kind, loving, and fiercely protective. I mean, just look at this face. This is my dad, the first second gentleman in the history of this nation. He's found his voice around the issues that matter to him.
You have no choice but to speak up and speak out.
There is an epidemic of hate, including a crisis of anti-Semitism in our country and around the world.
What they are doing on reproductive freedom and freedom in general is just outrageous.
And next, he's going to make history again as the first gentleman. I can't wait for everyone to get to know why we all love him. He's the glue that keeps this family together. We might not look like other families in the White House, but we are ready to represent all families in America.
Please welcome my dad, the second gentleman of the United States, Doug Emhoff.
I guess he didn't want me to give this speech. He just... Thank you so much. Hello. Thank you. Hello to my big, beautiful, blended family up there. I love you so much. Aren't you proud of Cole? Wow. And a special shout out to my mother. I see you. My mother is the only person in the whole world who thinks Kamala is the lucky one for marrying me. And to Kamala, who, well, we just saw where she is. She's out on the trail listening to and talking with voters. Honey, I can't wait for you to come back to Chicago because we're having a great time here. I love you so much. I'm so proud of how you're stepping up for all of us. But that's who she is. Wherever she's needed, however she's needed, Kamala rises to the occasion. And she did it for me and our family. And now that the country needs her, she's showing you what we already know. She's ready to lead. She brings both joy and toughness to this task, and she will be a great president we will all be proud of. Now, I'm the son of two Brooklynites, Mike and Barb. They've been together almost 70 years. My dad worked in the shoe business in Manhattan, and he moved our family out to New Jersey. Where's New Jersey? I see you out there. When I was a little kid. And in a lot of ways, I had a typical Jersey suburban childhood. I biked around the neighborhood. I took the bus to Hebrew school. And I rode to Little League practice in the way back of my coach's wood-paneled station wagon. And if we did well, we got to have a Slurpee after. In my neighborhood, everyone left their garage door open. Wherever you ended up at dinner time, that's the family that fed you. Everyone took care of everyone else. And the guys I grew up with are still my best friends. The group chat is active every day, and it's probably blowing up right now, guys. When my dad had to get a new job, we moved across the country to LA. Money was tight. Hey, California. Money was tight, so I worked at McDonald's in high school for some extra cash. Not only was I Employee of the Month, but I still have the frame picture, which you just saw, and there was a ring, golden arches and all. And then I waited tables, parked cars. I was working full-time so I could afford to go to college part-time. And thanks to partial scholarships, student loans, and a little help from my dad, I got myself through law school. And I got my first job as a lawyer, which is also where I met the guys in my fantasy football league. And a lot has changed in our lives since the early 90s, but my team name is still Nirvana. Yes, after the band. I worked hard, and I love being a lawyer. And by the way, I still get to be part of the profession by teaching students at Georgetown Law School. I got married, became a dad to Cole and Ella. Unfortunately, I went through a divorce, but eventually started worrying about how I would make it all work. And that's when something unexpected happened. In 2013, I walked into a contentious client meeting. We worked through the issue, and by the end of the meeting, the now happy client offered to set me up on a blind date, which is how I ended up with Kamala Harris's phone number. Now, for generations, people have debated when to call the person you're being set up with. And never in history has anyone suggested 8:30 a.m. And yet, that's when I dialed. I got Kamala's voicemail, and I just started rambling. Hey, it's Doug. I'm on my way to an early meeting. Again, it's Doug. I remember I was trying to grab the words out of the air and just put them back in my mouth. And for what seemed like far too many minutes, I hung up. By the way, Kamala saved that voicemail. And she makes me listen to it on every anniversary. But that message wasn't the only unusual thing about that day. Now, Kamala, who normally would have been working hard at her office, just happened to be waiting at her apartment for a contractor to do some work on her kitchen. I was eating at my desk, which was not a regular occurrence for a busy lawyer like me who appreciated a good business lunch. But that's when she called me back. And we talked for an hour, and we laughed. Well, you know that laugh. I love that laugh. And maybe that counted as our first date. Or maybe it was that Saturday night when I picked her up and told her, buckle up, I'm a really bad driver. Because you can't hide anything from Kamala Harris, so you might as well own it. And as I got to know her better and just fell in love fast, I learned what drives Kamala. And it's what you've seen over these past 4 years, and especially these past 4 weeks. She finds joy in pursuing justice. She stands up to bullies just like my parents taught me to. And she likes to see people do well, but hates when they're treated unfairly. She believes this work requires a basic curiosity in just how people are doing. Her empathy is her strength. Over the past decade, Kamala has connected me more deeply to my faith, even though it's not the same as hers. She comes to synagogue with me for high holiday services, and I go to church with her for Easter. I get to enjoy her mom's chili relleno recipe every Christmas, and she makes a mean brisket for Passover. It brings me right back to my grandmother's apartment in Brooklyn, you know, the one with the plastic-covered couches. But Kamala has fought against anti-Semitism and all forms of hate her whole career. She's the one who encouraged me as second gentleman to take up that fight, which is so personal to me. And those of you who belong to blended families know that they can be a little complicated. But as soon as our kids started calling her Mamala, I knew we'd be okay. Ella calls us a three-headed parenting machine. Kamala and Kirsten, thank you both. Thank you both for always putting your family and the kids first. Now, Cole and Ella's friends knew that when they come over for Sunday dinner with Mamala, it was going to be real talk. In between taking cooking instructions, they'd have to answer questions about what problem they wanted to solve in the world. They learned that you've always got to be prepared because Kamala is going to prosecute the case. And in the same breath that Cole and Greenlee told us that they were engaged, they asked Kamala to officiate their wedding. And in the same way that she always steps up when it matters, Kamala put so much time into those remarks, and she bound them in a book that matched her dark red dress, and then turned that into a gift for the happy couple. A few days ago, during this incredible time we're going through, there was a brief window when Kamala was back at home. And I saw her sitting on her favorite chair, and in the middle of a wild month, I just hoped that she was having a quiet moment to herself. But then I realized she was on the phone. And of course, my mind went to all the potential crises that the vice president could be dealing with. Was it domestic? Was it foreign? Was it campaign? I could see she was focused. And all I knew was that it must be something important. And it turns out it was. Ella had called her. That's Kamala. That's Kamala. Those kids are her priorities, and that scene was a perfect map of her heart. She's always been there for our children, and I know she'll always be there for yours too. Kamala is a joyful warrior. It's doing for her country what she has always done for the people that she loves. Her passion will benefit all of us when she's our president. And here's the thing about joyful warriors. They're still warriors. And Kamala is as tough as it comes. Just ask the criminals, the global gangsters, and the witnesses before the Senate Judiciary Committee. She never runs from a fight. And she knows the best way to deal with a coward is to take him head on. Because we all know cowards are weak, and Kamala Harris can smell weakness. She doesn't tolerate any BS. You've all seen that look, and you know that look I'm talking about. That look is not just a meme. It reflects her true belief in honest and direct leadership. And it's also why she will not be distracted by nonsense. Kamala knows that in order to win, we cannot lose focus. America, in this election, you have to decide who to trust with your family's future. I trusted Kamala with our family's future. It was the best decision I ever made. This Thursday will be our 10th wedding anniversary, which I know it means I'm about to hear that embarrassing voicemail again. However, that's not all I'll be hearing. That same night, I'll be hearing my wife, Kamala Harris, accept your nomination for President of the United States. And with your help, she will lead with joy and toughness, with that laugh and that look, with compassion and conviction. She'll lead from the belief that wherever we come from, whatever we look like, we're strongest when we fight for what we believe in, not just against what we fear. Kamala Harris was exactly the right person for me at an important moment in my life. And at this moment in our nation's history, she is exactly the right president. Thank you so much.
Please welcome former First Lady Michelle Obama.
Okay. We got a big night ahead. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. Hello, Chicago! Yeah. All right. Something wonderfully magical is in the air, isn't it? Yeah. You know, we're feeling it here in this arena, but it's spreading all across this country we love. A familiar feeling that's been buried too deep for far too long. You know what I'm talking about. It's the contagious power of hope. The anticipation, the energy, the exhilaration of once again being on the cusp of a brighter day. The chance to vanquish the demons of fear, division, and hate that have consumed us and continue pursuing the unfinished promise of this great nation, the dream that our parents and grandparents fought and died and sacrificed for. America, hope is making a comeback. But to be honest, I am realizing that until recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future. And for me, that mourning has also been mixed with my own personal grief. The last time I was here in my hometown was to memorialize my mother, the woman who showed me the meaning of hard work and humility and decency, the woman who set my moral compass high and showed me the power of my own voice. Folks, I still feel her loss so profoundly. I wasn't even sure if I'd be steady enough to stand before you tonight, but my heart compelled me to be here because of the sense of duty that I feel to honor her memory and to remind us all not to squander the sacrifices our elders made to give us a better future. You see, my mom, in her steady, quiet way, lived out that striving sense of hope every single day of her life. She believed that all children, all people have value, that anyone can succeed if given the opportunity. She and my father didn't aspire to be wealthy. In fact, they were suspicious of folks who took more than they needed. They understood that it wasn't enough for their kids to thrive if everyone else around us was drowning. So my mother volunteered at the local school. She always looked out for the other kids on the block. She was glad to do the thankless, unglamorous work that for generations has strengthened the fabric of this nation. The belief that if you do unto others, if you love thy neighbor, if you work and scrape and sacrifice, it will pay off. If not for you, then maybe for your children or your grandchildren. You see, those values have been passed on through family farms and factory towns, through tree-lined streets and crowded tenements, through prayer groups and National Guard units and social studies classrooms. Those were the values my mother poured into me until her very last breath. Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. Even though our mothers grew up an ocean apart, they shared the same belief in the promise of this country. That's why her mother moved here from India at 19. It's why she taught Kamala about justice, about the obligation to lift others up, about our responsibility to give more than we take. She'd often tell her daughter, Don't sit around and complain about things. Do something. So, with that voice in her head, Kamala went out and she worked hard in school, graduating from an HBCU, earning her law degree at a state school. And then she went on to work for the people, fighting to hold lawbreakers accountable, strengthening the rule of law, fighting to get folks better wages, cheaper prescription drugs, a good education, decent health care, child care, elder care. From a middle-class household, Kamala worked her way up to become Vice President of the United States of America. My girl, Kamala Harris, is more than ready for this moment. She is one of the most qualified people ever to seek the office of the presidency. And she is one of the most dignified. A tribute to her mother, to my mother, and to your mother too. The embodiment of the stories we tell ourselves about this country. Her story is your story. It's my story. It's the story of the vast majority of Americans trying to build a better life. Look, Kamala knows, like we do, that regardless of where you come from, what you look like, who you love, how you worship, or what's in your bank account, we all deserve the opportunity to build a decent life. All of our contributions deserve to be accepted and valued. Because no one has a monopoly on what it means to be an American. No one. Kamala has shown her allegiance to this nation, not by spewing anger and bitterness, but by living a life of service and always pushing the doors of opportunity open to others. She understands that most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. We will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. If we bankrupt a business or choke in a crisis, we don't get a second, third, or fourth chance. If things don't go our way, we don't have the luxury of whining or cheating others to get further ahead. No. We don't get to change the rules so we always win. If we see a mountain in front of us, we don't expect there to be an escalator waiting to take us to the top. No. We put our heads down. We get to work. In America, we do something. And throughout her entire life, that's what we've seen from Kamala Harris. The steel of her spine, the steadiness of her upbringing, the honesty of her example, and yes, the joy of her laughter and her light. It couldn't be more obvious. Of the two major candidates in this race, only Kamala Harris truly understands the unseen labor and unwavering commitment that has always made America great. Now, unfortunately, we know what comes next. We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black. Wait. I want to know. I want to know. Who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs? Look, it's his same old con. His same old con. Doubling down on ugly, misogynistic, racist lies as a substitute for real ideas and solutions that will actually make people's lives better. Look, because cutting our health care, taking away our freedom to control our bodies, the freedom to become a mother through IVF like I did, those things are not going to improve the health outcomes of our wives, mothers, and daughters. Shutting down the Department of Education, banning our books, none of that will prepare our kids for the future. Demonizing our children for being who they are and loving who they love, look, that doesn't make anybody's life better. Instead, it only makes us small. And let me tell you this, going small is never the answer. Going small is the opposite of what we teach our kids. Going small is petty, it's unhealthy, and quite frankly, it's unpresidential. So, why would any of us accept this from anyone seeking our highest office? Why would we normalize that type of backward leadership? Doing so only demeans and cheapens our politics. It only serves to further discourage good, big-hearted people from wanting to get involved at all. America, our parents taught us better than that, and we deserve so much better than that. That's why we must do everything in our power to elect two of those good, big-hearted people. There is no other choice than Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. No other choice. But as we embrace this renewed sense of hope, let us not forget the despair we have felt. Let us not forget what we are up against. Yes, Kamala and Tim are doing great now. We're loving it. They're packing arenas across the country. Folks are energized. We are feeling good. But remember, there are still so many people who are desperate for a different outcome, who are ready to question and criticize every move Kamala makes, who are eager to spread those lies, who don't want to vote for a woman, who will continue to prioritize building their wealth over ensuring that everyone has enough. So no matter how good we feel tonight or tomorrow or the next day, this is going to be an uphill battle. So folks, we cannot be our own worst enemies. No. See, because the minute something goes wrong, the minute a lie takes hold, folks, we cannot start wringing our hands. We cannot get a Goldilocks complex about whether everything is just right. And we cannot indulge our anxieties about whether this country will elect someone like Kamala instead of doing everything we can to get someone like Kamala elected. Kamala and Tim, They have lived amazing lives. And I am confident that they will lead with compassion, inclusion, and grace. But they are still only human. They are not perfect. And like all of us, they will make mistakes. But luckily, y'all, this is not just on them. No, this is up to us, all of us, to be the solution that we seek. It's up to all of us to be the antidote to the darkness and division. Look, I don't care how you identify politically, whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, or none of the above. This is our time to stand up for what we know in our hearts is right. To stand up, not just for our basic freedoms, but for decency and humanity, for basic respect, dignity, and empathy, for the values at the very foundation of this democracy. It's up to us to remember what Kamala's mother told her. Don't just sit around and complain, do something. So if they lie about her, and they will, we've got to do something. If we see a bad poll, and we will, we got to put down that phone and do something. If we start feeling tired, if we start feeling that dread creeping back in, we got to pick ourselves up, throw water on our face, and what? We only have 2.5 months, y'all, to get this done. Only 11 weeks to make sure every single person we know is registered and has a voting plan. So we cannot afford for anyone America to sit on their hands and wait to be called. Don't complain if no one from the campaign has specifically reached out to you to ask you for your support. There is simply no time for that kind of foolishness. You know what you need to do. So, consider this to be your official ask. Michelle Obama is asking you, no, I'm telling y'all to do something. Because you all, this election is going to be close. In some states, just a handful, listen to me, a handful of votes in every precinct could decide the winner. So we need to vote in numbers that erase any doubt. We need to overwhelm any effort to suppress us. Our fate is in our hands. In 77 days, we have the power to turn our country away from the fear, division, and smallness of the past. We have the power to marry our hope with our action. We have the power to pay forward the love, sweat, and sacrifice of our mothers and fathers and all those who came before us. We did it before, y'all, and we sure can do it again. Let us work like our lives depend on it. And let us keep moving our country forward and go higher, yes, always higher than we've ever gone before as we elect the next president and vice president of the United States, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Thank you all. God bless. Now, before I go, I have one more job tonight. Yeah, one more job. You all, thank you for all the love, but it is now my honor to introduce somebody who knows a whole lot about hope. Someone who has spent his life strengthening our democracy. And let me tell you, as someone who lives with him, he wakes up every day, and thinks about what's best for this country. Please welcome America's 44th president and the love of my life, Barack Obama.
Hello, Chicago! Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. All right. That's enough. Thank you. Chicago! It's good to be home. It is good to be home, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling fired up. I am feeling ready to go. Even if I am the only person stupid enough to speak after Michelle Obama. I am feeling hopeful because this convention has always been pretty good to kids with funny names who believe in a country where anything is possible. Because we have a chance to elect someone who has spent her entire life trying to give people the same chances America gave her. Someone who sees you and hears you and will get up every single day and fight for you. The next president of the United States of America, Kamala Harris. It's been 16 years since I had the honor of accepting this party's nomination for president. And I know that's hard to believe because I have not aged a bit. But it's true. And looking back, I can say without question that my first big decision as your nominee turned out to be one of my best. And that was asking Joe Biden to serve by my side as vice president. Other than some common Irish blood, Joe and I come from different backgrounds, but we became brothers. And as we worked together for 8, sometimes pretty tough years, what I came to admire most about Joe wasn't just his smarts, his experience. It was his empathy and his decency and his hard earned resilience, his unshakable belief that everyone in this country deserves a fair shot. And over the last 4 years, those are the values America has needed most. At a time when millions of our fellow citizens were sick and dying, we needed a leader with the character to put politics aside and do what was right. At a time when our economy was reeling, we needed a leader with the determination to drive what would become the world's strongest recovery. 15 million jobs, higher wages, lower health care costs. At a time when the other party had turned into a cult of personality, we needed a leader who was steady and brought people together and was selfless enough to do the rarest thing there is in politics, putting his own ambition aside for the sake of the country. History will remember Joe Biden as an outstanding president who defended democracy at a moment of great danger. And I am proud to call him my president, but I am even prouder to call him my friend. Now, the torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us to fight for the America we believe in. And make no mistake, it will be a fight. For all the incredible energy we've been able to generate over the last few weeks, for all the rallies and the memes, this will still be a tight race in a closely divided country. A country where too many Americans are still struggling, where a lot of Americans don't believe government can help. And as we gather here tonight, the people who will decide this election are asking a very simple question. Who will fight for me? Who's thinking about my future, about my children's future, about our future together? One thing is for certain, Donald Trump is not losing sleep over that question. Here's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator 9 years ago. It has been a constant stream of gripes and grievances that's actually been getting worse now that he's afraid of losing to Kamala. There's the childish nicknames, the crazy conspiracy theories, this weird obsession with crowd sizes. It just goes on and on and on. The other day I heard someone compare Trump to the neighbor who keeps running his leaf blower outside your window every minute of every day. Now, from a neighbor, that's exhausting. From a president, it's just dangerous. The truth is, Donald Trump sees power as nothing more than it means to his ends. He wants the middle class to pay the price for another huge tax cut that would mostly help him and his rich friends. He killed a bipartisan immigration deal written in part by one of the most conservative Republicans in Congress, that would have helped secure our southern border, because he thought trying to actually solve the problem would hurt his campaign. He doesn't. Do not boo. Vote. He doesn't seem to care if more women lose their reproductive freedom, since it won't affect his life. And most of all, Donald Trump wants us to think that this country is hopelessly divided between us and them, between the real Americans, who of course support him, and the outsiders who don't. And he wants you to think that you'll be richer and safer if you will just give him the power to put those other people back in their place. It is one of the oldest tricks in politics, from a guy whose act has, let's face it, gotten pretty stale. We do not need 4 more years of bluster and bumbling and chaos. We have seen that movie before, and we all know that the sequel is usually worse. America's ready for a new chapter. America's ready for a better story. We are ready for a President Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris is ready for the job. This is a person who has spent her life fighting on behalf of people who need a voice and a champion. As you heard from Michelle, Kamala was not born into privilege. She had to work for what she's got. And she actually cares about what other people are going through. She's not the neighbor running the leaf blower. She's the neighbor rushing over to help when you need a hand. As a prosecutor, Kamala stood up for children who had been victims of sexual abuse. As an attorney general of the most populous state in the country, she fought big banks and for-profit colleges, securing billions of dollars for the people they had scammed. After the home mortgage crisis, she pushed me and my administration hard to make sure homeowners got a fair settlement. Didn't matter that I was a Democrat. Didn't matter that she had knocked on doors for my campaign in Iowa. She was going to fight to get as much relief as possible for the families who deserved it. As vice president, she helped take on the drug companies to cap the cost of insulin, lower the cost of health care, give families with kids a tax cut. And she is running for president with real plans to lower costs even more and protect Medicare and Medicaid, and sign a law to guarantee every woman's right to make her own health care decisions. In other words, Kamala Harris won't be focused on her problems. She'll be focused on yours. As president, she won't just cater to her own supporters and punish those who refuse to kiss the ring or bend the knee. She'll work on behalf of every American. That's who Kamala is. And in the White House, she will have an outstanding partner in Governor Tim Walz. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. I love this guy. Tim is the kind of person who should be in politics. Born in a small town, served his country, taught kids, coached football, took care of his neighbors. He knows who he is, and he knows what's important. You can tell those flannel shirts he wears don't come from some political consultant. They come from his closet, and they have been through some stuff. They have been through some stuff. That's right. Together, Kamala and Tim have kept faith with America's central story. A story that says we are all created equal. All of us endowed with certain inalienable rights, that everyone deserves a chance, that even when we don't agree with each other, we can find a way to live with each other. That's Kamala's vision. That's Tim's vision. That's the Democratic Party's vision. And our job over the next 11 weeks is to convince as many people as possible to vote for that vision. Now, it won't be easy. The other side knows it's easier to play on people's fears and cynicism, always has been. They will tell you that government is inherently corrupt, that sacrifice and generosity are for suckers. And since the game is rigged, it's okay to take what you want and just look after your own. That's the easy path. We have a different task. Our job is to convince people that democracy can actually deliver. And in doing that, we can't just point to what we've already accomplished. We can't just rely on the ideas of the past. We need to chart a new way forward to meet the challenges of today. And Kamala understands this. She knows, for example, that if we want to make it easier for more young people to buy a home, we need to build more units and clear away some of the outdated laws and regulations that made it harder to build homes for working people in this country. That is a priority, and she's put out a bold new plan to do just that. On health care, we should all be proud of the enormous progress that we've made through the Affordable Care Act, providing millions of people access to affordable coverage, protecting millions more from unscrupulous insurance practices. I've noticed, by the way, that since it's become popular, they don't call it Obamacare no more. But Kamala knows we can't stop there, which is why she'll keep working to limit out-of-pocket costs. Kamala knows that if we want to help people get ahead, we need to put a college degree within reach of more Americans. But she also knows college shouldn't be the only ticket to the middle class. We need to follow the lead of governors like Tim Walz, who said, if you've got the skills and the drive, you shouldn't need a degree to work for state government. And in this new economy, we need a president who actually cares about the millions of people all across this country who wake up every single day to do the essential, often thankless work, to care for our sick, to clean our streets, to deliver our packages. We need a president who will stand up for their right to bargain for better wages and working conditions. And Kamala will be that president. Yes, she can. Yes, she can. Harris-Walz administration can help us move past some of the tired old debates that keep stifling progress. Because at their core, Kamala and Tim understand that when everybody gets a fair shot, we are all better off. They understand that when every child gets a good education, the whole economy gets stronger. When women are paid the same as men for doing the same job, all families benefit. They understand that we can secure our borders without tearing kids away from their parents, just like we can keep our streets safe while also building trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve and eliminating bias. That will make it better for everybody. Donald Trump and his well-heeled donors, they don't see the world that way. For them, one group's gains is necessarily another group's loss. For them, freedom means that the powerful can do pretty much what they please, whether it's fire workers trying to organize a union or put poison in our rivers or avoid paying taxes like everybody else has to do. Well, we have a broader idea of freedom. We believe in the freedom to provide for your family if you're willing to work hard. The freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water and send your kids to school without worrying if they'll come home. We believe that true freedom gives each of us the right to make decisions about our own life, how we worship, what our family looks like, how many kids we have, who we marry. And we believe that freedom requires us to recognize that other people have the freedom to make choices that are different than ours. That's okay. That's the America Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in. An America where we, the people, includes everyone. Because that's the only way this American experiment works. And despite what our politics might suggest, I think most Americans understand that. Democracy isn't just a bunch of abstract principles and dusty laws in some book somewhere. It's the values we live by. It's the way we treat each other, including those who don't look like us, or pray like us, or see the world exactly like we do. That sense of mutual respect has to be part of our message. Our politics have become so polarized these days that all of us across the political spectrum seem so quick to assume the worst in others, unless they agree with us on every single issue. We start thinking that the only way to win is to scold and shame and out-yell the other side. And after a while, regular folks just tune out, or they don't bother to vote. Now, that approach may work for the politicians who just want attention and thrive on division, but it won't work for us. To make progress on the things we care about, the things that really affect people's lives, we need to remember that we've all got our blind spots and contradictions and prejudices, and that if we want to win over those who aren't yet ready to support our candidates, we need to listen to their concerns and maybe learn something in the process. After all, if a parent or grandparent occasionally says something that makes us cringe, We don't automatically assume they're bad people. We recognize that the world is moving fast, that they need time and maybe a little encouragement to catch up. Our fellow citizens deserve the same grace we hope they'll extend to us. That's how we can build a true Democratic majority, one that can get things done. And by the way, that does not just matter to the people in this country. The rest of the world is watching to see if we can actually pull this off. No nation, no society has ever tried to build a democracy as big and as diverse as ours before. One that includes people that over decades have come from every corner of the globe. One where our allegiances and our community are defined not by race or blood, but by a common creed. And that's why when we uphold our values, the world's a little brighter. When we don't, the world's a little dimmer. And dictators and autocrats feel emboldened. And over time, we become less safe. We shouldn't be the world's policemen, and we can't eradicate every cruelty and injustice in the world. But America can be and must be a force for good. Discouraging conflict, fighting disease, promoting human rights, protecting the planet from climate change, defending freedom, brokering peace. That's what Kamala Harris believes, and so do most Americans. Now, I know these ideas can feel pretty naive right now. We live in a time of such confusion and rancor, with a culture that puts a premium on things that don't last. Money, fame, status, likes. We chase the approval of strangers on our phones. We build all manner of walls and fences around ourselves, and then we wonder why we feel so alone. We don't trust each other as much because we don't take the time to know each other. And in that space between us, politicians and algorithms teach us to caricature each other and troll each other and fear each other. But here's the good news, Chicago. All across America, in big cities and small towns, away from all the noise, the ties that bind us together are still there. We still coach Little League and look out for our elderly neighbors. We still feed the hungry in churches and mosques and synagogues and temples. We share the same pride when our Olympic athletes compete for the gold. Because the vast majority of us do not want to live in a country that's bitter and divided. We want something better. We want to be better. And the joy and the excitement that we're seeing around this campaign tells us we're not alone. You know, I've spent a lot of time thinking about these past few months because, as Michelle mentioned, this summer we lost her mom, Ms. Marion Robinson. And I don't know that anybody has ever loved their mother-in-law any more than I love mine. Mostly it's because she was funny and wise and the least pretentious person I knew. That, and she always defended me with Michelle when I messed up. I'd hide behind her. But I also think one of the reasons Mary and I became so close was she reminded me of my grandmother, the woman who helped raise me as a child. And on the surface, the two of them did not have a lot in common. One was a black woman from right here, south side of Chicago, right down the way. Went to Englewood High School. The other was a little old white lady born in a tiny town called Peru, Kansas. Now, I know there aren't that many people from Peru. And yet they shared a basic outlook on life. They were strong, smart, resourceful women, full of common sense, who, regardless of the barriers they encountered, and women growing up in the 40s and 50s and 60s, they encountered barriers. They still went about their business without fuss or complaint and provided an unshakable foundation of love for their children and their grandchildren. In that sense, they both represented an entire generation of working people who, through war and depression, discrimination and limited opportunity, helped build this country. A lot of them toiled every day at jobs that were often too small for them and didn't pay a lot. They willingly went without just to keep a roof over their families' heads, just to give their children something better. But they knew what was true. They knew what mattered. Things like honesty and integrity, kindness and hard work. They weren't impressed with braggarts or bullies. They didn't think putting other people down lifted you up or made you strong. They didn't spend a lot of time obsessing about what they didn't have. Instead, they appreciated what they did. They found pleasure in simple things. A card game with friends, a good meal, and laughter around the kitchen table. Helping others. And most of all, seeing their children do things and go places that they would have never imagined for themselves. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican or somewhere in between, we have all had people like that in our lives. People like Kamala's parents, who crossed oceans because they believed in the promise of America. People like Tim's parents, who taught him about the importance of service. Good, hard-working people who weren't famous or powerful, but who managed in countless ways to leave this country just a little bit better than they found it. As much as any policy or program, I believe that's what we yearn for. A return to an America where we work together and look out for each other. A restoration of what Lincoln called, on the eve of Civil War, our bonds of affection. An America that taps what he called the better angels of our nature. That is what this election is about. And I believe that's why, if we each do our part over the next 77 days, if we knock on doors, if we make phone calls, if we talk to our friends, if we listen to our neighbors, if we work like we've never worked before, if we hold firm to our convictions, we will elect Kamala Harris as the next president of the United States and Tim Walz as the next vice president of the United States. We will elect leaders up and down the ballot who will fight for the hopeful, forward-looking America we all believe in. And together, we too will build a country that is more secure and more just, more equal, and more free. So let's get to work. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America.
Sam Stein joining us live from the convention.
Yo.
So are you backstage or are you at the workspace? Where are you right now?
I'm with Barack, hanging out backstage. No, I'm in the workspace. I jumped out to talk to you all. Where's Tim? Is he gone or is he here?
He'll be here in just a second. Tonight it's Sam, me, and Tim. Maybe some other people will jump on. Sam is at the convention. Kate asks.
I am at the convention.
And have you seen Charlie Kirk?
I have not. Sorry. There's a lot of angst among attendees that there are some conservative provocateurs roaming the halls, so everyone's a bit on edge here. But no, I just watched the Obama speech. Ran out here to talk about it. Also saw the Michelle Obama speech, and yeah, I mean, can't recall a recent convention speech with that much electricity in the crowd. That was pretty remarkable. Also thought they did kind of accomplished what the speakers last night failed to do. Maybe Tim could get into that more because I think it feels the same way. But especially Michelle Obama, I just thought she was on her game tonight, specifically.
Hey everybody, I'm back. Low
Tim.
energy Sam.
Where'd you go?
What are you talking
I'm
about?
low energy.
Michelle Obama was on her game tonight. They were fucking awesome. And all of you, we're live, we're commenting. I want to see you in the commenters. I want to see all the people in the comments last night that were like, why are you guys so down? That was amazing. That was amazing last night. I want to see you all right now. No, it wasn't amazing last night. It was just fine. It was okay at best. That was a fucking convention. That's how you do it. All right. Your job as a convention speaker is to build up the nominee. Michelle Obama talking about Kamala Harris's mother, talking about how you got to go do something, connecting her life story to Kamala's, talking about how it's the unseen labor and unwavering commitment of Kamala and her mother that is what actually made America great. That's good. Calling her my girl, talking about the joy of her laughter and light, taking the sting out of Donald Trump's attack on her laughing. Like, that's how you do it. Barack Obama then goes up there and talks more about the policies, gets more into the policies that she's doing, and does the other side of the equation, which we knew he would do, which is tear down Donald Trump with a small dick joke. Did you catch that in the arena? Trump had a small dick joke was there during the keynote tonight. Obama goes, "Why is he so obsessed with crowd sizes?" And he looks at his hands as they get smaller and smaller. I'm excited. We got John Favreau on the pod tomorrow. I'm excited to ask him if that was part of the script or not.
Improvise.
Yeah, and then what else did I want to mention about Obama? Oh yeah, one more thing.
Doug? Can we talk about Doug?
We can't talk about Doug. One more thing though, we got to do. It's the Bulwark live stream. I don't know. I have no inside info. It'll be another question for Favreau on the podcast tomorrow. But I think Barack Obama might be interested in a Bulwark contributorship based off the final 15% of the speech, talking about Lincoln's our bonds of affection, the better angels of our nature. We don't want to live in a country that's bitter and divided. We want something better. Whether you know somebody in your life who's a Republican, who's a good person, who cares about being nice, being a good person, cares about their family and community. That was pretty bulwarky at the end there from Barack.
Well, the rumor is that he's a subscriber, paid subscriber, and that
Is that
big fan of the
the
Bill
Triad
Kristol.
newsletter?
No,
Obviously a
big fan of
Triad
Bill
reader.
Kristol Morning Shots guy.
Bill Kristol Morning Shots. All right. Anyway, I don't know, Jim. I came in late. Did you already talk? Did I step over you? Do you have any reacts, Jim?
I mean, I agree with your assessment. It had the energy that last night lacked, and I watched all of it last night, and I was in the comments, reading the comments last night. What last night wasn't as big of a win as tonight was. I'm sorry. Joe Biden gave a great speech. Joe Biden gave a good speech, but nowhere near the Obamas. That energy you saw, and packing 2 rallies, the one in Milwaukee as well. I mean, it's the energy. And yes, I mean, Sam isn't a former Republican operative like Tim and I are. But, we've been to these conventions and we know what bad, good energy might look like at some of these things. But there's the energy and it's electric. And
it was the energy. I know you want to talk about Doug, Sam, but it's a little more. I want to get one more thing on Barack before we get to Doug, who I also loved. It was more than the energy. It was the substance. The Barack Obama gives you what you're looking for. Like what you're looking for here out of a convention from the people that did not watch 4 hours, for the non-sickos, is you want a clip that can play on cable or on TikTok that either builds Kamala up or tears Trump down. That's the assignment. That's the actual assignment here. Obama, he's a 78-year-old billionaire who has not stopped whining about his problems since he rode down his golden escalator. That is a good frame for him, right? Like the Obama with the leaf blower thing. He's a fucking whiny he's like your old neighbor who's shouting at Fox News. That is good. That's a good clip to send around. And then the positive side of that is Michelle talking about Kamala. The other side of that, reaching out to swing voters, is Obama just being like, man, we don't need to be as divided as this. We don't need it. We don't we want to be better as a country. Like substantively, you are hitting all the different types of groups you're trying to hit, and you're having a coherent speech, like a masterclass comparatively speaking. So Doug, let's talk about how much we love Doug.
Well,
unless Sammy had something else on that.
Just a few. Yeah, I'm going to riff for a little bit here. One is it was notable to me that the two, because I want to bring Doug in here, but I thought the 2 best speeches tonight were Doug and Michelle. And I think it's notable that you get the 2 best speeches from the 2 people who've never held elected office. I thought Obama's speech was great. President Obama's speech was great, but it was more.
Speak up a little bit, Sam. You got to talk a little louder.
I thought it was great, but I thought President Obama's speech was great, but I thought it was more conventional. I thought the Doug speech was totally atypical. I mean, it's a spouse speech, but in a way, like he kind of weaved in her biography in a way that I think people don't really know. Like, there's a lot of interesting tension points in their story, right? Like, different religions, high stress jobs, the public scrutiny that she's now under, all of that, he sort of humanized her in a way that I don't think she's been humanized before. Mission accomplished for Doug. And then Michelle Obama, she didn't really focus on biography. Yes, she did talk about her mom, but she made the proactive case for Harris and also the real case against Trump. And frankly, the case against complacency, which is like the big I've been probably talked to 2 dozen attendees today. And that's like the big undercurrent here. Like everyone's jazzed, right? Like people are super excited, but they're all like, oh shit, like we've been here before. Like 2016, very similar vibes. And we got complacent. And they're all very worried about being complacent. And Michelle Obama just like basically spent the latter half of her speech being like, do not get complacent. Go do the work. Go knock on doors. Do not get complacent. I will say I thought the sort of the line that will stand, I think, the test of history was not Barack Obama. It was Michelle Obama. Like, she's just fucking good at this. And it was when it's hard to describe the reaction in the convention, all this, but she goes, who's going to tell him, being Trump, that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs? I swear, I thought the roof was going to come off. Like, the people went nuts. And, then you step back and you think that was probably one of the first times that a speaker at this convention has directly addressed race or gender. Like, they've done it obliquely. but she just went right at it and said, you know what, we're gonna go at it. We're gonna call Trump for who he is. And I think when we look back at this convention, maybe a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, it's going to be Michelle Obama's speech. It's going to be that speech because that one was just pitch perfect. It was almost a flawless convention speech. Is that high energy enough? Sorry.
Yeah, it is. It is. You're just people want to hear more of you. You're just a little bit. It's louder where you are, and I got my fancy mic. Yeah, no. I also like whoever gave her because I don't think I've heard it before. The affirmative action of generational wealth is another good line.
Yeah,
That's good speechifying, and that I think that will stick around as something in people's mind. The black job line is with the one that I wrote down and mentioned earlier about the laugh, like the joy of her laughter. It's like, we're just going to own that. Like Michelle Obama's just going there. Like, I'm just going to own this for her.
Right.
It's like, it's a little bit, you don't want Kamala up there saying, oh, I like my laugh and this is a job for a black person, right? Like it's a little weird for Kamala to say that. It's a little weird for like a guy to say it, even kind of like Michelle Obama was totally the right vehicle.
Doug referenced the laugh. The only place those two overlapped were that it's so funny. They had and this is what I'm going to write about, two incredibly different deliveries, two incredibly different speeches. Doug was all biography, two like wildly different objectives. The one place where they overlapped was they talked about the laugh. But anyways, they both had different goals here, which was Doug needed to bring Kamala, the person he knows, to the public, and Michelle Obama needed to sell Kamala, the politician, to the public. And I think on each front, wildly successful, and definitely a contrast to last night, which, look, last night was going to be about Biden. It was. And, like, that was the look back.
We're not going back, Sam.
Yeah.
We're not going back to last night. We're not going back to last night. Jim, what else you got?
Related, speaking of the Emhoff, who did an amazing job was his son narrating that video.
It was a great video.
I mean, a lot of those things are just kind of puff. I mean, they're, like Matt Schlapp at CPAC style kind of rah red meat stuff. I was actually captivated, very captivated by it. I'm like, whoa. And then there he was. And I think it was a good lead in and introducing that, the kind of blended family dynamic I thought was really effective.
Here's the other thing about Kamala, and I mentioned this during the Q&A portion earlier, was she is more so than any other nominee recently. People don't have a pretty shallow knowledge of her.
Completely.
Right? Like, she's very shallow now. So that presents opportunity at a convention, right? Like, you can tell little anecdotes about it that people haven't heard already that don't already know. So I thought that really worked for Doug, right? Like, the little meet cute kind of showed a personality of a lot of people are probably like, why are they together? Like, how old were the kids when they got married? Right? Like, it's obvious, you know what I mean? Like, what was their story? So like, he was able to tell that story. That was new to people. And I think showed a personal side of her. The Michelle talking about her mother and kind of where that indomitability came from. That was a new side of her. Obama did it more on a policy thing. Again, I know we're not going back to last night. But again, like when people are like, why were you mad about that? Why didn't you not like the Biden and Hillary speeches? Well, because they didn't do that. Like Biden's speech was as if he'd never met her almost. Like he could have never met her and given the same speech, basically. And like these specific little details, little nuggets, I think we'll continue to get that over the next two nights, are very interesting to people. People can grab them. They're charming. And the Doug video was like new. It's like, oh, wait, he was from New Jersey. And like, he was hot in high school. And like, right. Like, it's just all the, like, you're learning this new stuff. It doesn't feel quite as stale. It's like the advantage of this late campaign is it doesn't feel stale.
Well, and also if you watch, I had to do all this research for the focus group podcast, but like one of the predominant features of Sarah's groups when they were asked about Harris is that people were just like, they didn't know anything about her. They're like, right. Oh yeah, she's vice president, but I don't really know what she's done. And that of course extends to the person too, right? Like she didn't make it very far in the primary. We didn't really get to like see her on the campaign trail at all during the 2020 campaign, right? And then as vice president, you're sort of naturally in the background. And so we had this really compressed time frame to actually figure out some stuff. So like when Doug's talking about the voicemail, which I thought was pretty funny, talking about the voicemail he left on her answering machine, like that's about Doug, but that's also about Harris, the fact that she plays it for him on every anniversary, just ribbing the guy a little bit. And so yeah, I totally get what you're saying. But honestly, I don't want to harp on it. Michelle Obama, it's like, I mean, she'll never run for office, and I get it because she hates the game. but it's like I just don't understand how
It
someone could
feels
be
like
that
you,
good
she
at it.
should.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
it feels like,
it's like when you're
it's almost
given
a
gift.
tragedy.
Yeah. And maybe it's only maybe we feel that way because we only get it every 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Like, but it's like to be that gifted an order, and just the cadence with which he speaks and the sort of move. And you've written these speeches, Tim. You know how it goes. Like
Yeah.
all of it really is like someone could have read that speech who wasn't Michelle Obama, and it just wouldn't have been the same. Like her oratory, her delivery,
It was
the
well
pregnant
written.
pauses. It was well written. Of course,
I
yeah.
know. I think it was she was really good. I don't know. I have no idea who wrote the speech, but it was the best constructed. It was the best constructed speech. But yes, she's
why
also
you say,
good.
I'm curious. Why do you say that? Like, I want to get a little bit of a window
Yeah,
into
sure.
like what made it good.
Again, because I was like, well, for starters, she didn't mention Donald Trump or Joe Biden.
She
So
mentioned Trump. She mentioned Trump once. I looked at the remarks only once.
Yeah. So it was in this kind of we're not going back element. Thematically, it was good, right? Because it was forward looking, and I liked it. So it has a structure, right? You knew at the beginning when first she talks about her mother, and she talks about how we're grieving. She's grieving kind of her view of the country a little bit. And I thought that was something that like really resonated with me. It was like a nice little nugget that had some depth to it. That wasn't just political pablum right off the top. And then she mentions Kamala's mother and her line about doing something. And you know then that's tying through the whole speech, right? So it's like, it's the Chekhov gun of the speech, right? You're like, okay, here's where we're going.
Yeah.
We're going to, the speech is going to be active. And then she goes through, she does devastating contrast with Trump without even mentioning him. Barely. I guess she says his name
Just
one
once.
time.
Yeah.
But multiple times where she's like talking about him without talking about him. And they did that very deftly. And then you get into talking about Kamala's personal characteristic traits. And then you get to the call to action at the end. It was very well constructed. It was not pablum. It was the right balance of personal and heartstrings and political action. And so whoever wrote it, kudos to them. I thought it was much better written and delivered than Barack. Barack's speech was good, and it was the bulwarkiest. But it was
totally.
His got a little bit laundry listy. Hers was a contained vehicle.
It's so funny. I love that you said that because I think people don't really understand that simplicity is like much better in these moments, right? Like a well-structured, concrete, delivered speech that doesn't have to go on for 30 minutes. Like 15 minutes is fine. And that's what like gets people going. Like you don't need to go through the laundry list. People don't really want to hear that. It's useful. But like, yeah, she just delivered. Now, which part do you think is going to set Trump off the most from tonight?
I mean, I think it's got to be the small dick joke.
It's got to be. Has he posted on Truth yet? I need to know.
I haven't seen.
A colleague of ours joked that we can look forward to hearing a version of this exact speech in 4 years at the Republican convention.
From Melania?
Yeah. Or maybe it'll be Laura or Kimberly Guilfoyle.
I also liked, we didn't mention the other good Obama line that'll get Trump is we've seen this movie before and we all know the sequel's usually worse. That was a dad joke. It was a dad joke, but it's a good dad joke. It's snappy. Again, what are the objectives here? To get stuff that'll be on TikTok. That's good. So anyway, any other little nuggets from the room, Sam? Anybody you talk to? Any little vibe updates?
Yeah. We're going to have some video on this tomorrow because Barry was hounding me like a dog through the convention hall, videoing everybody. But like I said earlier, the sort of interesting thing that I'm confronted with when I talk to people is like, everyone's super jazzed. Everyone's like, it's like you ask them like, a month ago, how did you feel about this convention? Oh boy, I wasn't looking forward to this. And then how do you feel now? Oh, this is great. But then it's always tempered, right? Always like, but we can't get complacent. Like we've been through this before, like 2016, we thought that Hillary was a shoo-in and like, we just kind of took our foot off the gas. They use all these cliches. And then they're like, we have to do the work. Now, I don't know. Who knows if that like is a true sentiment or if these are just the real true believers or whatever. But like, there is a sense that one, the gender dynamics, while better, the country at large, as in more voters are receptive to a female president, but they still could really show their head, and two, that they recognize that like this is going to be close no matter what, and that they do actually have to go organize, knock on doors, donate, do all the stuff, the nitty gritty stuff, and that the sugar high that they're feeling right now is just that. It's just a sugar high. So I thought that came through in my talks today. The hall is just packed. Honestly, it's nutty packed right now, in a way that like would have been unfathomable 3 or 4 weeks ago. But that's where we're at.
I'm looking at Truth Social to see if Trump was posting during it, and he did a fucking interview with Theo Von.
Oh, that was before though.
That just makes me sad.
How did the honorary roll call go? I mean, it was executed somewhat well. It was cutesy, but it seems sort of like a waste of a lot of prime time when we could have been done earlier and we could have had more cable reactions. I mean,
it was fun, and like each one got their moment. There was a weird, scary kind of moment with Tony Evers there. I'm kind of curious what happened.
Yeah, we missed that.
It was weird, but like people were having fun. It was fine. You have to do it, I guess, but it did take a while. Little John was pretty dope. Yeah, that's the stuff. People want their time in the sun. But that's the one part of the 2020 convention, which was miserable. But that one part was kind of more enjoyable, where they did the virtual roll call, and you had like the calamari guy from Rhode Island, memorably. So I kind of missed that. But no, like I said, Jim, I think just people are just like super stoked. In a way that is like a little bit different than Milwaukee was. Milwaukee, everyone was like happy, but like pretty much convinced they're going to win. Here, they're like super jazzed, but kind of petrified that they're not going to win still.
You almost want to go re-meet the Milwaukee people to see how they're feeling.
I told Caputo he's got to call back the delegates he talked to see how they feel about this. Because like, I mean, we talked to like 24 delegates in Milwaukee, and we're like, on a scale of 1 to 10. How do you feel about this election? 10 being surefire win, and like everyone was like 11, 12. Like they knew, they're like, we have this shit in the bag, and it's just remarkable how this stuff has changed. It really is. Like it really is.
That's a good Caputo story. Okay, yeah. Any final thoughts, Jim Swift, Sam Stein? Any final thoughts?
Do you think tomorrow will top tonight?
No. Not at all. Tomorrow's going to be a bit of a letdown. I think it'll be fun. I think Bill Clinton's going to give a stem winder. Walz, I don't know. This is his first big time moment.
The people are going to like Walz. The people in the room are going to like Walz. It'll be interesting to me to see who else they're trying to talk to, right? And I do think that Walz, and I talked about this with Beto a bit today, right? Like Walz can reach the kind of rural, exurban part of the upper Midwest, these voters, like you have to try, right? Like he's not like Manchin or Tester, right? He's not a conservative moderate that can appeal to them because they share their view on gun rights or whatever. Like that's not it. Like it's got to be I know these types of people. Donald Trump does not know them. Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about you. He cares about himself, right? Like, can he deliver that message? And then the room will like him. Like that part will be the problem. The interesting thing will he be able to deliver a message that kind of advances the ball? Because tonight they did it all. They did it all. It's all I asked for. It's all I asked for. We're like, everybody's so grumpy. We're not grumpy. Just give me good shit. Give me good shit. Give me the good shit, and I'm happy. That's it.
You're sometimes grumpy.
Am I sometimes grumpy? I don't think so. Happy. I'm really happy when people do well. I don't like going back. I'm going forward. We're going forward into coconut time. All I need now to cap off this week is a couple of Republican Never Trumper speeches and Kamala doing the coconut line on Thursday. And if that happens, then A+ convention for me. We're just going to pretend like Monday didn't happen. Guys, thank you. I'll be back tomorrow with John Favreau, where I will get behind the scenes on the Barack Obama dick joke. For the Bulwark Pod. Who's on with you guys tomorrow night? Well, I'm doing cable.
Oh man, don't put me on the spot here. I gotta look this stuff up.
All right. Well, some of your other Bulwark favorites. You're sick of me by now.
Tomorrow night, JVL. Andrew Perticone, or
Yeah.
Andrew Egger and Joe Perticone.
The people are desperate for JVL. People also
Finally.
want Sarah back. Will you find Sarah in Chicago and tell
I'm
her?
looking for her. I have not seen
Will you
her. I
shake
gotta
her
find her.
down? Sarah is
Sure.
working. Sarah's guys. You know how Michelle Obama was going out there and saying, "Do something, do something." Sarah
That's what
is
she's doing.
doing something. She's doing the work out there. So you got to deal with me, and Sam, and tomorrow night
And Jim.
JVL and Jim Swift. Jim looking good. Nice backdrop.
Thank you.
Big improvement on the backdrop. And
Less
everybody,
hostagey.
we'll see. We will. Let's see. We're not going back. We're gonna see you all tomorrow. Thanks to Michelle Obama and Barack Obama for turning this vibe around. Peace out.